Chapter 1785. Hearing those words, Zhang Guanyu pondered for a moment before taking a seat. He vaguely knew a little about Zhou Xian's background. Even though he was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, he had lost his parents. Only 36 esteemed elder Ming could be considered his elder and kin. No one was more qualified than 36 esteemed elder Ming to sit in this position. As for himself, it was because of Umo stood behind Zhang Guanyu and introduced the people in the hall one by one. Zhang Guanyu greeted them one by one. On the way here, Umo had told him many things about the Yuntian Tower, including the temperament of the elders, their likes and dislikes, and so on. As such, even though this was Zhang Guanyu's first time here, he was very considerate in every aspect, making it impossible for anyone to find fault with him. Some people originally wanted to find out something from Zhang Guanyu, but they were all solved by Zhang Guanyu with little effort. It was only then that everyone realized that even though Zhang Guanyu was born outside of the Divine Ruins world, his wits and means were on par with those present. After a round of banter, the crowd gradually calmed down. Everyone began to wait for the return of Zhou Xian and the others. At the foot of Bright Reversal Peak, a few young men and women were descending the mountain. Each of them was carrying a dark green wine jar in their arms. 36 esteemed elder Ming sure is picky. The ethereal hall has already stored the wine, but he still wants us to retrieve it from the clear Jiuquan. The wine of the clear Jiuquan was extraordinary. It had to be stored in specially made wine jars, and it couldn't be stored in a universe ring. It had to be carried on one's shoulders. The few trips had depleted quite a bit of their origin energy. A tall and thin young man wiped the sweat off his forehead. This was already his second trip to retrieve the wine. A round-faced woman beside him harumphed. It's because the elders think highly of us that they allowed us to go. Otherwise, given our standing, it would be difficult for us to even enter the ethereal hall. I heard that it's beneficial to our cultivation. What benefits? He's just trying to coax you. The tall and skinny man interrupted her impatiently, his face full of disapproval. If revered elder is really thinking for us, why don't you just give us some good pills or divine tools? Which one isn't stronger than this one? In his opinion, this was just hard work to serve others. The round-faced woman wasn't convinced, but she couldn't argue with him. After all, this was her first time doing this, so she wasn't sure if it was really beneficial to her cultivation. She paused for a moment before saying, even if there are no benefits, this is what we should do. His Highness, the Holy Sun, and the Princess Consort are coming back today, and there are also important guests. Of course, the wine has to be the best. Honored guest? Are you talking about that Zhang Guanyu? The tall and thin man laughed. Haven't you noticed that he's just a demigod? He's not even a true god-level expert. How could such a person become a distinguished guest of our Yuntian Tower if it wasn't for his great luck and the princess's blessing? The disdain in his voice was undisguised. The round-faced woman didn't expect his words to be so direct and unpleasant. She was stunned for a moment. A moment later she stammered. But he's still the princess consort's father. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to say that? What's inappropriate about it? Aren't I speaking the truth? The tall and thin man lifted the wine jar in his hand and sneered. In the world of gods, the strong are respected. He doesn't have the strength to back it up, so no one will think highly of him. Do you think that all of the elders in the ethereal hall are respectful toward him? I dare say that most of them don't think much of Zhang Guanyu at all. The round-faced woman was rendered speechless. Those words were unpleasant to the ears, but they made sense. The reason why they were so polite was because of the Holy Sun and the Princess Consort. However, if one were to talk about the Holy Sun of the Ethereal Hall, there were only a handful of them who truly acknowledged and welcomed him. The other woman who had been silent all this while spoke up. No matter how strong he is, he's still the Princess Consort's father. Regardless of how powerful he is, his standing in our Yuntian Tower won't be low. Besides, the Holy Sun is married to Miss Shangguan. No matter what, Miss Shangguan is outstanding in all aspects. She was beautiful and her words were gentle. Hearing her words, the tall and thin man's expression softened significantly. You're right. Actually, I just feel that. Your Highness, marrying this consort is still a little. He paused for a moment. There are many noble ladies in the world of gods who admire our Holy Sun. If we can form a marriage alliance with them, the situation will be very different. The smile on the woman's face remained unchanged. Our princess consort is also outstanding, isn't she? That senior Shangguanjing is a supremacy blacksmith. A supremacy blacksmith is indeed formidable, but compared to those sects with deep foundations. The tall and thin man shook his head. He didn't finish his words, but the meaning behind his words was clear. The round-faced woman glanced at the two of them and said hesitantly, "But I heard from the revered elders that other than Shangguanyu, the Holy Sun has invited many of the princess consort's friends to his wedding. His Highness values the princess consort a lot." The tall and thin man didn't think much of it. The princess consort has no foundation in the world of gods. Naturally, he has to invite more people to make it more lively. Otherwise, wouldn't the scene be unbearable? The beautiful woman smiled. "That's enough. These are not things we can discuss. It's fine to talk about it in private, but don't let others hear it. Go. If we wait any longer, we won't have time to get the wine." After saying that, she took the lead and walked forward. The remaining two didn't say anything else and followed behind her. After their figures gradually disappeared into the distance, the void fluctuated and a figure walked out. She was wearing a red dress and her figure was slender and exquisite. Her black hair hung down, which made her snow-white face even more beautiful. It was Chu Luiyue. She looked in the direction where those people left and raised her eyebrows slightly, revealing a mysterious smile. It seemed that many people in the Yuntian Tower had such thoughts. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1786. Originally, she had come back with Rong Xiu and the others. However, after hearing the news that her father had arrived, she decided to go back and change her clothes before going to meet him. During this period of time, she had been busy running around. Although there weren't any injuries on her body, she still looked a little travel-worn. This was the first time she wanted to meet her father in the Divine Ruins world. Naturally, she wanted to show her best appearance so that her father could be at ease. She didn't expect that the moment she arrived, she would hear those people mention her and her father. She simply set up a barrier and hid. Just like that, she listened to their conversation. "Ah, you?" Dumpling asked in her heart. "Aren't you angry that they said that about you?" When she heard those words just now, she almost couldn't help but rush out. Chu Luiyue chuckled. "What's there to be angry about? They're telling the truth." She was very clear about what kind of place the Divine Ruins world was. Here the strong preyed on the weak and the strong were respected. She wasn't from an aristocratic family, so there was nothing to argue about. Even if there was a Taizu now, the Taizu had always been working alone. Although they had made an extremely high reputation, it was difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Just relying on the Taizu alone, they couldn't support the Shangguan family. The sects and families that were able to establish themselves in the Divine Ruins world all had top-notch god-level experts in their ancestors. Furthermore, they had passed down the power of their bloodline from generation to generation. They had a deep accumulation and foundation. Indeed, they couldn't be compared to them. Hearing Chu Luiyue's words, Dumpling snorted angrily. "I don't care. They said that about you, so they should be punished. I've already memorized their voices. The next time I see them, I'll definitely teach them a lesson." She wasn't even afraid of Grandpa Patriarch, so why would she be afraid of these people? Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. She really liked Dumpling's ability to hold grudges. However, "Dumpling, I know you can beat 1, 2 or even 3 of them. But can you beat more than that?" Dumpling was stunned. There must be a lot of people in Yuntian Tower who think this way. Even if we take care of a few of them, it still won't change their minds. Dumpling hesitated. "Then what should we do?" Chu Luiyue raised his head slightly and looked at Duming Peak. Gazing upward, Zhou Xian could already see the majestic ethereal hall. Needless to say, almost all the important figures in the Yuntian Tower were gathered there. Her eyes flickered as if thousands of stars were sprinkling down, and the light was fragmented. If you want them to acknowledge your position, the only way is to become stronger than them. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. "You, Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that Rong Xiu had unknowingly appeared behind her. He had also changed into a snow-white robe. Even though his previous set was also very clean. "Have you been waiting for long?" Previously, they had agreed to meet here. Chu Luiyue shook her head with a smile. "Oh, I just arrived." Rong Xiu walked closer. Standing here, he could even smell the faint fragrance of her body after bathing. When he lowered his eyes slightly, he could see her beautiful face. Under her smooth and full forehead were two fan-like thick and long eyelashes. Her nose was tall and straight, and he could vaguely see her cherry lips. After this period of running around, she seemed to have slimmed down, but her figure seemed to have become more slender, tall, and exquisite. Unknowingly, the youthful aura of a young girl had already disappeared. She was like a flower that was gradually blooming, gradually revealing her beauty and brilliance. Just a glance was enough to make one's heart waver. She was becoming more and more similar to her previous appearance. Rong Xiu. At this moment, Shangguan Jing and the others had also rushed over. Earlier, Rong Xiu had specially arranged a place for them to tidy up. Thus, at this moment the three of them were no longer haggard and they looked much more energetic. Rong Xiu's lips curled up. Since everyone is here, let's head to the ethereal hall together. His Highness Inceptive Sage has arrived. His Highness Consort has arrived. Everyone who was waiting in the ethereal hall could not help but widen their eyes in shock. Everyone turned their gazes toward the entrance. Two figures were walking in side by side. The man on the left was dressed in a snow-white robe. He had a tall figure and a seductive appearance. However, he exuded an indescribable elegance that made one subconsciously look up to him. The woman standing by his side wore a red dress that fluttered in the wind. She was slender, tall, and peerlessly beautiful. She clearly had an extremely beautiful and exquisite appearance, yet her eyes were clear, and penetrating. She faintly carried a piercingly cold, heroic aura, and it was especially eye-catching. The two of them walked side by side against the light, and they appeared before everyone's eyes together. A faint layer of light shrouded their bodies. At a glance, it was as though two immortals had arrived hand in hand. What a pair! At this moment, everyone in the hall couldn't help but be impressed. Putting everything aside just in terms of appearance and disposition, the two of them were indeed a perfect match. Just looking at them like this was enough to delight one's eyes. 36 Esteemed Elder Ming was the first to react. He stood up with a smile and walked over to greet them. Welcome back, Your Highness Inceptive Sage and Princess Consort. As soon as he moved, everyone immediately reacted and bowed as well. We welcome back Your Highness Inceptive Sage and Princess Consort. Chu Liyue's gaze skipped over these people and landed on the figure at the deepest part of the hall. She couldn't be any more familiar with that figure and that appearance. Shangguan Yu stood up and wanted to walk over, but he realized that his heart was pounding furiously. His legs had stiffened and he was unable to move at all. His eyes were fixated on the face that he had been thinking about day and night. With trembling lips, he finally managed to call out. Where? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1787. Chu Liyue's eyes stung as she walked over quickly. Father. Seeing that she had moved, Shangguan Yu hurried over. The father and daughter were speechless when they saw each other. Shangguan Yu looked at her from head to toe, and something seemed to be surging in his eyes. After a while he said, You've lost weight. Thousands of words condensed in his chest, but his throat was extremely dry. In the end he could only say such a short sentence. There was a slight tremor in his voice. Chu Liyue blinked and the tears in her eyes disappeared. She smiled brightly. Long time no see. Father, how are you? Shangguan Yu hurriedly said. Good. Father, everything is fine. Townling is also fine. I just miss you. How could he not miss her? When they parted last time he thought that she would only stay in the world of divine ruins for a short period of time and would return soon. Who knew that so much time had passed in the blink of an eye? She didn't go back, but he came here. Is it too hard for you here? Shangguan Yu looked at her face, which had obviously lost a little weight, and his heart ached. Chu Liyue smiled like a flower. Father, you're worrying too much. Look at me, my strength has increased a lot. Shangguan Yu noticed that her aura had indeed increased a lot compared to when they parted. You've broken through to the high god level? Shangguan Yu asked in shock. Chu Liyue nodded and then took his hand. It's a long story. I'll explain it to you in detail when we have time later. Her father knew almost nothing about everything that had happened to her in the world of divine ruins. He didn't know that she had broken through to the high god level when she came to the world of divine ruins a few years ago. She didn't tell her father before because she was afraid that he would be worried. But now it was indeed time to tell him. Shang Guanyu nodded vigorously. I'll listen to you. As long as you're willing to tell me, I'm willing to listen. Chu Liyue's heart warmed. At this time Rong Xiu also came forward and saluted Shang Guanyu. I haven't formally introduced myself to you before. Junior Rong Xiu, the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, greets Lord Shangguan. Rong Xiu's attitude was very respectful and polite. Shang Guanyu looked at him with emotion. In fact, he already knew that Rong Xiu's identity was unusual, but he didn't expect it to be even more shocking than he expected. The ruler of a first-rate family, the famous war god of the Divine Ruins world. In the past he only thought that Rong Xiu was gentle, polite and had an extraordinary temperament. No matter what situation he encountered, he was always calm and collected. Now that he saw Rong Xiu again, Shang Guanyu finally realized that Rong Xiu's calm aura was the reason for his strong abilities. How could an ordinary person have such an aura? I'll have to trouble you to take care of you during this period, Shang Guanyu said. Rong Xiu chuckled. This is what Rong Xiu should do. Of course he would protect his woman. Shang Guanyu breathed a sigh of relief. Originally he was a little worried that the gap between their identities was a little big, but judging from Rong Xiu's attitude he didn't have to worry about this. You didn't misjudge him. At this moment another announcement was heard. Everyone in the hall turned their heads and saw 3 figures walking towards them. Many people knew the one at the front. It was the famous Shangguan Jing. The old man beside him had white hair and a sage-like demeanor. The aura on his body was also not to be underestimated. It was the dean of Lingshao College, Nan Suhuai. Nan Suhuai was very famous, but not many people had seen him before. After all, only a few people in the entire Yuntian Tower had been to Lingshao College. In the past few years, Nan Suhuai had disappeared without a trace. He hadn't appeared much, so there were even fewer people who knew him. Many people were surprised. As the dean of Lingshao College, Nan Suhuai had always maintained a neutral attitude. He rarely went to other aristocratic families in the Divine Ruins world. But now he had come directly to Yuntian Tower. Did he come for Shang Guanyu? Some people glanced at the red-clothed woman standing in the middle of the hall. They had heard that Shang Guanyu was actually Nan Suhuai's personal disciple. Moreover, Nan Suhuai valued and doted on her a lot. Now it seemed that the rumors were true. Nan Suhuai came to Yuntian Tower for her without hesitation. His appearance with Shang Guanjing was enough to show his position. He was here to support Shang Guanyu. The people in the hall exchanged greetings with Shang Guanjing and Nan Suhuai one after another. However, when they saw the third person they were surprised and at a loss. Who was this person? Chu Ning frowned slightly when he sensed those sizing up gazes, but he quickly returned to normal. Indeed, he was the person with the lowest background here. If it wasn't for Yue, he wouldn't even have the chance to go to the Tianling dynasty, let alone come to the Divine Ruins world and be in the same room with people from a first-rate aristocratic family like Yuntian Tower. If it was in the past, he might have been nervous and perturbed when facing this situation. But now he wasn't. He had experienced too much during this period of time. Countless pain and torture couldn't make him bow his head. Now this was just a small matter. He had to admit that although those nightmarish days had brought him deep pain, it had indeed caused him to change greatly from the inside out. He had never thought of that before, but now he felt that it was just so. Because of this, Chu Ning's attitude was exceptionally magnanimous. He stood beside Shang Guanjing and Nan Suhuai. Although his aura couldn't be compared to theirs, his calm attitude didn't lose out at all. Someone couldn't help but whisper. Strange, he's just a stage 1 warrior. How can he have such an aura? A stage 1 warrior was even worse than many children in Yuntian Tower. However, his expression was magnanimous, as if he didn't feel embarrassed at all. Many people heard this. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Perhaps because he was afraid of Rong Xiu and the others, the person who spoke was actually quite polite. However, it was hard to say what he was thinking. Chu Liyue was calm and composed, and she wasn't angry. She knew what these people were really thinking, and she also understood why they had such a reaction. But there was nothing to be concerned about. Chu Ning had the indestructible divine body. As long as he cultivated well, he would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. At that time, many of the people here would probably be defeated by him. Father, let me introduce you. Chu Liyue pulled Shang Guanyu over. Since you know Taizu, I won't say much. This is the dean of Lingshao College and also my master. And this is my father when I was in Yaochen. Her words sounded a little awkward. Shangguanyu looked enlightened. You are Chu Ning? Chu Ning also understood the identity of the person in front of him when he heard Chu Luiwei address him. His heart tightened slightly. Yes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1788. Chu Ning had been able to remain calm in the face of so many people's scrutiny and doubts. However, he suddenly became nervous when facing Shangguanyu. He was nervous mainly because Shangguanyu's identity was too special. He was Yu's father. He had thought about this when he found out about Yu's real identity. Now that they met, he realized that it was more awkward than expected. Chu Ning didn't know what identity he should use to face Shangguanyu. However, when Shangguanyu heard that, he suddenly took half a step back and bowed deeply to Chu Ning. Chu Ning was shocked and hurriedly said, "No." Shangguanyu's status was higher than his and he was Yu's real father. He really didn't dare to accept this bow. However, Shangguanyu was very insistent. He stood up and sincerely said after he finished bowing, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Chu Ning, thank you for taking care of previously." He knew that many things had happened to her when she was in Yaochen. If not for Chu Ning's protection, would have suffered a lot. When he was lying unconscious in the Tianling Palace, it was Chu Ning who gave a home. His heart was filled with endless gratitude towards Chu Ning. Chu Ning's emotions surged when he heard these words. He didn't expect Shangguanyu to think this way. He thought that, "Chu Ning, it's your blessing to have a father like you," Shangguanyu said sincerely. Chu Ning was shocked and suddenly looked up at Shangguanyu. What he meant was, seeing Chu Ning's expression, Chu Liwei seemed to have something surging in her heart and almost drowning her. She held Chu Ning's hand and said, "Father, I've already told father before that no matter who I am, I'm still your daughter." She had occupied the real Chu Liu's body and received the fatherly love that should have belonged to that girl. Therefore she was Chu Ning's daughter. It didn't matter if she was Chu Luiwei or Shangguanyu. The porridge that he had cooked for her, the constant concern for her, the courage and determination to protect her time and time again, that was enough. She was father's daughter and Chu Ning's heart seemed to be choked by something. He looked at Chu Luiwei and then at Shangguanyu. Their expressions were so sincere that he almost thought he was in a dream. He had once thought that he would lose but in the end, "Father, don't you want anymore?" Chu Liwei blinked and asked. "How could this be?" Chu Ning hurriedly denied. "As long as wants it, father will always be by your side." As he said this, the weight in Chu Ning's chest suddenly dissipated. In an instant he felt as if his entire body was smooth and comfortable. This was how it should be. No matter what, he would still love dearly in the future. Seeing that Chu Ning was truly relieved, Chu Luiwei also felt much more at ease. To be able to receive two sets of fatherly love was her luck and blessing. Wuxia watched from the side and a smile appeared on his handsome face. Since she was happy, he was happy too. Although there were many twists and turns in the middle, everything was finally perfect now. He could see that she was really happy. After they exchanged a few more pleasantries, Wuxia said, "Now that the dust has settled and all the elders are here, let's start preparing for the wedding." All the revered elders had already guessed his plan, so when they heard this, they weren't too surprised and all agreed. In fact, Wuxia had already sent people to prepare for this matter long ago, so even if the notice was rather sudden, Yuntian Tower could still arrange everything in an extremely short time. Wuxia gave a few more instructions no matter how big or small. 36 Revered Elder Ming asked, "Your Highness, the people to be invited for the wedding." Wuxia handed over a list of names. "The list of people to be invited is here. Just go and invite them according to this. The invitations are with Yan Qing. Let him distribute them later." 36 Revered Elder Ming's mouth twitched unnoticeably. Logically speaking, the guest list should be discussed and decided by the revered elders of the clan, but His Highness had already written it down. He really didn't want to wait for even a moment. 36 Revered Elder Ming thought as he opened the list. After taking a few glances, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked at Wuxia in shock. "Your Highness, this..." Everyone looked over curiously. What was so special about the list to make 36 Revered Elder Ming, who was always calm, react so intensely? Sensing those gazes, 36 Revered Elder Ming swallowed his saliva and tried his best to ask tactfully, "Your Highness, this list, isn't it a little too many?" His Highness really didn't make up this list randomly? Putting aside those clans and sects that were on good terms with Yuntian Tower, there were also some that weren't on good terms with them, and even some that had quarreled with them before. His Highness was planning to invite all the important figures in the entire Divine Ruins world. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Too many? I don't think so. A wedding should be lively, shouldn't it? 36 revered Elder Ming was speechless. His Highness's words. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong? But the key was that some of the people on the list might not come. If they came, it might be even more troublesome. As if seeing through his thoughts, Rongxiu's thin lips curled up and he said calmly, I will only hold this wedding once in my life. Naturally, I have to do it well and announce it to the world. He wanted everyone in the Divine Ruins world to know. Was his. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1789. The entire Yuntian Tower became busy. The Holy Sun's wedding was a big event for the entire clan. Everyone was naturally mobilized and did not dare to slack off. During this period of time, Chu Luiyue became the most leisurely person. As the wedding was imminent, she did not stay with Rongxiu in the sacrificial god hall. Instead, she stayed in Chang'e Mountain, which was beside Duming Peak. There were many courtyards on Chang'e Mountain and most of them were scattered, so Shangguanyu and the rest stayed there. At the very beginning, Chu Luiyue had even specially picked a suitable time to tell Shangguanyu about everything that had happened. Of course, most of it was good. As for some of the more troublesome parts, most of it was skipped. Anyway, those things were already in the past and there was no point in talking about it. It would only make father sad. Even so, Shangguanyu's heart still ached after hearing it. This made Chu Luiyue even more grateful for her previous choice. On the other hand, Chu Ning had been staying in his room ever since he came to Chang'e Mountain. On one hand, he wanted to let Chu Luiyue and Shangguanyu catch up. On the other hand, he also wanted to concentrate on his cultivation. After coming to the Yuntian Tower, he realized that the strong were indeed respected here. If he stayed as a rank 1 warrior, not only would he be looked down upon, but he would also implicate you. Therefore he put almost all of his thoughts and energy into this. Fortunately, he had the indestructible divine body now and his talent had a qualitative leap. In addition, the Yuntian Tower was full of energy which was very beneficial for cultivation. Chu Ning's cultivation speed could be said to be 1,000 miles a day. On the second day he directly broke through to become a rank 2 warrior. On the 5th day he jumped to become a rank 3 warrior. On the 8th day he jumped to become a rank 4 warrior. His physical body was the divine body. When he cultivated, the absorption and digestion of the surrounding energy was no different from a real high god. In this way it was a piece of cake for him to raise his warrior rank. As his strength rapidly increased, Chu Ning's mood became better and better. At this rate, it wouldn't take long for him to complete his breakthrough and become a true high god. Although a high god expert wasn't considered a top cultivator in the Divine Ruins world, it was still a huge improvement for Chu Ning. When he was in Yaochen, he never thought that he would be able to reach the legendary realm one day. And all of this was because he had met you. As long as he could become stronger, he would be able to protect you, in the future. Chu Luiyue also focused on cultivating in his residence. Rongxiu had long arranged everything for the wedding ceremony, and there was no need for her to interfere in any of the major and minor matters. After asking a few questions, Chu Luiyue found that he was worried for nothing, so he simply and wisely gave up on these questions. Instead, he focused his mind and energy on his own cultivation. Even though there were quite a few accidents and dangers along the way, it was very obvious that Chu Luiyue's abilities had improved in all aspects. Especially in the god-slaying mound, she definitely benefited a lot. In the courtyard, Chu Luiyue sat quietly on a stone bench. She was toying with a stone in her hand. And there were more than a dozen stones scattered around her feet. These stones were the ones she had taken out from the god-slaying mound. They seemed to be scattered on the ground in a disorderly manner, but in fact, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the power contained in each stone. And that restless god domain that was about to be unleashed. Dong. A stone rolled to her feet. Chu Luiyue looked down and raised her eyebrows. No. There was a boundary outside Chang'e Mountain, and without permission outsiders couldn't enter or leave at will. But it was always better to be cautious. Every single one of these stones contained a god territory. If she unleashed it, it would definitely cause a big commotion. How would she explain it if it attracted a crowd? Actually, these stones weren't rare at all. They were just some broken tombstones that she had picked up from the god-slaying mound. Thinking of that scene, Chu Liwei couldn't help but shudder and move her feet away. The origin force here is rich. It's enough for you to replenish your energy. Don't cause trouble. She had already discovered that these stones could devour the origin force around them and convert it into her own power, making her god territory stronger. But it was a little slow. In fact, these stones were already very efficient at absorbing energy. They could almost compete with cultivators with Daijing Yuan meridians. Chu Liwei thought it was slow because she was too fast. Hearing her words, the stones finally quieted down. Chu Liwei looked at them for a while, then threw out some more. Some of them rolled directly into the bushes in the distance or down the stairs. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't notice anything wrong with these stones. A subtle fluctuation came from afar. Chu Liwei put down the stone in her hand and looked up. It was Yuemo. He walked over quickly and stood in front of Chu Liwei. "Greetings, Your Highness." Chu Liwei glanced at him. "Yuemo, why are you so happy?" She couldn't hide the smile on her face. Yuemo chuckled. "Your Highness, Miss Mu Hongyu is here." Chu Liu's eyes lit up. Then he heard a familiar clear voice. "Lu Yu." Chu Liwei looked up slightly and indeed saw a figure heading toward her at high speed. Her almond-shaped eyes were bright and her willowy eyebrows were raised. Who else could it be but Mu Hongyu? Chu Liwei stood up and went to welcome her. "Hongyu, why are you only here now?" Father was far away in Tianling and he had been here for a few days. Mu Hongyu was at Lingxiao College, so she should have arrived earlier. She didn't know why she was delayed until now. Mu Hongyu cupped her hands pitifully. "I was delayed by something at the last minute. Lu Yu, you won't blame me, right?" Chu Liwei raised her chin. "Tell me first. What was delayed?" At the mention of this, Mu Hongyu's face fell. "Actually, it's nothing. I've been busy breaking through recently." Chu Liwei. "This is your reason?" Mu Hongyu coughed. "Actually, it's not completely like that. It's just that some things have happened in the academy recently." Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes. She felt that something was wrong. Mu Hongyu had always been passionate and enthusiastic about cultivation. Her aura had indeed strengthened. She must have succeeded in her death. If that was the case, why did she have such an expression? What happened in the academy? She had been very busy recently, so she didn't know much about the situation in the academy. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a while and stood up anxiously. It's actually not a big deal. It's just that Jian Fengqi also came to the academy. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1790. Chu Liwei froze for a moment. "Who are you talking about?" "Jian Fengqi." Mu Hongyu rubbed her temples with a headache. "I don't know how he got to Fangzhou City and got into the Lingxiao Academy. It happened a few days ago." Chu Liwei came back to her senses. She was also quite shocked by this matter. "Take the Celestial Physician's exam?" Mu Hongyu nodded. Chu Liwei nodded in understanding. Jian Fengqi was indeed very talented in this area. Even compared to her, he was not much worse. It was normal for him to be able to get into Lingxiao College. This is a good thing. Jian Fengqi had helped her a lot in the past. Now that he was able to enter Lingxiao College to cultivate, his future would be limitless. No matter how she thought about it, this was something to be happy about. But why did Mu Hongyu look a little upset? Mu Hongyu rubbed her face in confusion. "This is a good thing for him, but for me, Mu Hongyu was a little hesitant to say something. Chu Liwei asked again. "Did Jian Fengqi make things difficult for you?" It didn't seem very likely. Jian Fengqi was quite good to them back then. "No, but Mu Hongyu's face turned slightly red. Chu Liwei was very perceptive and quickly guessed something. "If I remember correctly, he seems to have your indenture contract from back then?" Mu Hongyu saw that she guessed correctly and didn't hesitate anymore. "Yes. He has been making trouble for me with this matter." "Trouble?" Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment, then quickly understood and her expression became a little strange. Mu Hongyu was even more embarrassed under her gaze. "Will you help me think of a way?" Chu Liwei paused for a moment. "Then what did he say and do?" Mu Hongyu choked. "Just say that I ran away. He wasn't happy. He even said..." She bit her lip. Chu Liwei had already guessed the gist of it. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Mu Hongyu was stunned. "Lu Yu, what are you laughing at?" Chu Luiyue tapped her forehead. I'm laughing at your stupidity. Jian Fengqi was so pitiful. Hongyu, don't tell me you only found out now that Jian Fengqi likes you? Mu Hongyu was stunned, but her face turned even redder. After a while she said in a flustered and helpless manner, I don't know. Seeing her reaction, Chu Luiyue silently shed tears of sympathy for Jian Fengqi. Mu Hongyu had a straightforward personality and was intelligent and quick-witted. However, when it came to matters of the heart, she was obviously stubborn. If Jian Fengqi wasn't interested in her, he wouldn't have spent so much money to redeem her, and he wouldn't have helped her time and time again. Chu Luiyue didn't notice it at first, but now that he thought about it, he immediately realized something. Even he could tell that Mu Hongyu, the person involved, was extremely muddle-headed. Not only did she not understand the other party's feelings at all, she even said that he was looking for trouble. TSK. He really didn't know what Jian Fengqi had been through. Where is he now? Chu Luiyue asked. Mu Hongyu replied, at the academy. He should have followed you here. Why is he still at the academy? Mu Hongyu shrunk her neck. Her voice suddenly weakened, revealing a sense of guilt. He's injured. Chu Luiyue facepalmed. Needless to say, it had to have something to do with Mu Hongyu. Hongyu, you know better than anyone how Jian Fengqi treats you. Don't you like him? Mu Hongyu was stunned. She immediately lowered her eyes, revealing a trace of confusion on her face. I don't know. She had never thought about this before. Therefore, when Jian Fengqi spoke to her directly, she was stunned. Chu Luiyue's question made her remember to ask herself this question. What was she thinking? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and decided to let them deal with it themselves. After all, outsiders couldn't be sure about matters of the heart. Stay in Yuntian Tower for the time being. Calm down and think about what happened between the two of you. It won't be too late for you to go back after our wedding. It's a pity that we can't invite Jian Fengqi over. Mu Hongyu nodded but was quickly distracted by Chu Luiyue's words. Right, your wedding with His Highness this time, is it very grand? When I came just now, I saw that many places were already decorated. It's so beautiful. No. The word beautiful was too superficial. It should be said that it was magnificent and shocking. Even if she only took a quick glance when she passed by, she still felt her heart skip a beat. This kind of extravagance was simply shocking. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Actually, she only took a few glances at the beginning, but she didn't look at it after that. She knew very well that Rongxiu had been planning this for a few years. It was absolutely extraordinary. But now it seemed that it was more impressive than expected. His Highness's extravagance is indeed extraordinary, Mu Hongyu murmured. Then she suddenly realized something and stared at Chu Luiyue in surprise. Luyu, I haven't seen you for a while. Your strength has increased again? Chu Luiyue nodded. Although she was wearing a divine artifact to hide her aura, others could still feel it. Something happened recently, Chu Luiyue said and then changed the topic. By the way, Debao. Before she could finish her sentence, another figure flew over. It was Yanqing. Greetings, Princess. Yanqing bowed respectfully, but there was something wrong with her expression. Princess, something happened over there. I'm afraid I have to ask you to go over. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? Yanqing looked at her. The 13U guards are blocked outside the barrier. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1791. The 13U guard is here too? Chu Luiyue was delighted at first, but then she frowned. Where were they stopped? Do you know the reason? Yanqing said, Princess, only 6 people from the 13U guard came this time. One of them had a suspicious dangerous item on him, which caused a disturbance in the barrier. He refused to hand over the item, so he was stopped outside the barrier. Yanqing was also surprised when she heard about this. Then she immediately reported to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's thoughts raced as she walked forward. Take me to see. Mu Hongyu hurriedly followed him. I'll go too. The Yuntian Tower was vast, and the barrier used to defend against enemies was also very large. Correspondingly, they were very strict about guarding the barrier. Chu Luiyue and the others attracted a lot of attention when they went to the barrier. There were not many people who could travel freely in the entire world of God, and Chu Luiyue was particularly eye-catching. Many people only took a glance from afar and knew it was her. What is Wang Fei going to do? I don't know. Looks like she's going to the barrier. Hasn't the princess been staying at Chang'e Mountain all this time? Why is she suddenly going to the barrier? Hey, haven't you heard? The princess's former subordinates were stopped outside the barrier for some reason. Now both sides are in a stalemate. The princess consort is most likely going to settle this matter. But they are just a few subordinates. Why did they come? They're here because His Highness, the Chosen One, invited them. What's there to guess? No, I mean it's normal for His Highness the Saint and the Princess to invite the princess's elders and friends to their wedding. But they even invited their subordinates. It's really, all in all, it made people feel a little strange. Moreover, these so-called subordinates caused trouble as soon as they arrived. They didn't seem to be easy to deal with. Someone laughed. Princess Consort isn't from the Divine Ruins world. Now that she's getting married, it's normal for His Highness Holy Son to invite more people to join in the fun. There was even a hint of mockery in his words. To put it nicely, it was lively, but to put it bluntly, it was just a show of courage. The wedding is just around the corner. If those so-called subordinates really cause any trouble, they can't blame us. Chu Luiyue didn't care about that. She sped along and soon arrived at her destination. From afar she saw Sun Yi and the others. At this time they were standing outside the barrier and several Yuntian tower guards were blocking their way. Both sides seemed to have entered a stalemate. Since you are the princess consort's subordinates, we don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over that thing, we can immediately let you in. One of the guards frowned. It's just a waste of time for us to continue this confrontation. Sun Yi looked at the woman behind him. Little Hachi. The woman looked to be around 17 or 18 years old. She had a gorgeous appearance and exquisite facial features. Especially her pair of eyes that were suffused with a coquettish aura and could practically suck out one's soul. She could be said to be peerless. She was wearing a colorful dress, revealing her slender and fair arms as well as her calves. It was very eye-catching. Her wrists and ankles were wrapped with colorful ropes, which were decorated with broken jade beads. Every time she moved, her body would jingle. Her long black hair was tied up simply with a colored string, and it extended all the way to her ankles. Regardless of her appearance, just her outfit alone would attract attention wherever she went. She was Little Hachi of the 13U Guard. She didn't have a name, so everyone called her that. When Little Hachi heard this, she pursed her red lips in dissatisfaction. Big brother, I was planning to take that thing out after seeing Master. If I take it out now, it'll be a waste. Sun Yi's long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't say anything else. He understood Little Hachi's personality very well. No one could force her to do something she didn't want to do. She definitely had her own reasons for being so insistent. After thinking for a moment, Sun Yi asked, "Since you're worried, why don't you just send someone to follow us in? If anything happens, we'll take responsibility for it." The expressions of the guards turned even colder. Impossible. The barrier's reaction was so strong. How could they let them in so easily? If something really happened, they wouldn't be able to escape responsibility either. Sun Yi slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. At this moment he was the first to sense Chu Liuyue's movements. He turned his gaze and looked over. "Master is here," he said indifferently. The remaining guards came back to their senses and hurriedly followed his gaze. Little Hachi also opened her beautiful eyes wide and kept looking around. Where? She quickly saw Chu Liuyue. A smile appeared on that beautiful and delicate face, instantly causing the surrounding world to lose its color. In that instant, the surrounding scenery seemed to have lost its color, leaving only her. Flirtatious and gorgeous, her beauty unparalleled. "Master!" Little Hachi waved at Chu Liuyue, her figure swaying. Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed to be able to devour a person's soul. That smile of hers was truly charming. Even the guards who had been cold and stern earlier couldn't help but stare blankly at this moment. Little Hachi turned a deaf ear to them and only cared about her master. "Master! Little Hachi missed you so much after not seeing you for so long." Chu Liuyue facepalmed. She knew that the one causing trouble was definitely her. "Greetings, Princess Consort." The few guards reacted and immediately saluted. Chu Liuyue indicated for them to dispense with the formalities. "I'll handle it." As she spoke, she looked at Little Eight. "Speak, what did you bring me?" She actually caused such trouble because of this. Little Hachi's red lips curled slightly and immediately revealed a smug smile. Of course it's a good treasure. Master will definitely like it. She clasped her hands together and shook them lightly. The broken jade beads on her wrist jingled, crisp and pleasant to the ear. Then a wooden box suddenly appeared. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1792. The wooden box was about the size of a palm and was completely black. Only the edges were suffused with a faint silver. Especially at the 8 corners, there was a special pattern of flowers and vines. At a glance, it was luxurious and exquisite. Little Hachi handed the wooden box over and raised her eyebrows. Master, quickly open it and take a look. There's really good stuff inside. Chu Liyue curiously took the wooden box. Little Hachi was very talented as a celestial physician. She especially liked to study strange prescriptions. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to help Chi-Han refine a pill that could change his aura. For her to hand it over like a treasure, it must be something extraordinary. Suddenly, Chu Liyue's eyes narrowed. Only then did she see that the flower vines on the wooden box were undergoing subtle changes. The vines and leaves moved silently as if they were being blown by the wind. During this process, what was even more shocking was that the wooden box was actually starting to melt bit by bit. Like an ice cube that would gradually melt under the scorching sun, the wooden box started to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye after little Hachi took it out. However, no water dripped from it. It was as if it had mysteriously evaporated and disappeared. She looked at little Hachi suspiciously. Little Hachi hurriedly said, "Tunya, I already said that this thing can't be taken out casually. If the box is gone, the thing inside will be ruined." As she spoke, she urged Chu Liyue to open it. The wooden box wasn't locked. Chu Liyue moved her fingers and opened it. A red elixir the size of a longan fruit was lying quietly inside. The pill's color was pure and rich, and it emitted a faint medicinal fragrance. However, there were no markings on the pill that represented its grade. There was only a small flower vine leaf pattern. It was exactly the same as the one on the wooden box. Chu Liyue was stunned at first. Then she suddenly realized something and looked at little Hachi in shock. "This is, Master, it wasn't easy for me to refine this. It must have been hard on you to bring it all the way here." Little Hachi looked at her and saw the crux of the matter. She blinked and a pair of soft and boneless hands climbed onto Chu Liyue's arm. She leaned against her and said in a gentle voice, "Master, how do you plan to reward little Hachi?" Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. Little 8 was a natural demon. Her eyes were filled with a myriad of emotions. No matter where she went, she was the most eye-catching. Over the years she had been seducing her, but she didn't give them a second glance. On the other hand, every time she met Chu Liyue, she would always stick to Chu Liyue seductively. After all, they hadn't seen each other for a few years. Chu Liyue almost couldn't take it when this happened so suddenly. Cough. Of course, Chu Liyue, Ling Shao Academy's herb garden is for you to use for 1 month. Really? Little Hachi's eyes lit up and she was overjoyed. "Master, you're the best to me." She had been coveting that herb garden for a long time. It was a pity that her master had always valued that herb garden and was reluctant to let her use it. This time it was finally a success. Seeing little Hachi sticking to Chu Liyue and acting coquettishly, Yanqing couldn't help but frown. Why was this woman like this? Chu Liyue took out the pill and was about to swallow it. Yanqing tried to dissuade her. "Princess consort, this pill. What if there was a problem?" Chu Liyue smiled and said, "Little Hachi is mine. Don't worry." Little Hachi glared at Yanqing. "This pill was specially refined by me to help Master refine his divine body. You don't know anything. Why are you here to cause trouble?" Yanqing glanced at little Hachi indifferently. His face was still expressionless, as if he didn't care about what she was saying at all. Since the princess consort said that she was trustworthy, then there shouldn't be a problem. It wasn't appropriate for him to continue speaking. But the princess consort's subordinates were all rather special. Yanqing's eyes swept across Sun Yi and the rest without batting an eyelid, but he quickly retracted his gaze. Seeing that Yanqing actually didn't care about her, little Hachi was instantly enraged. "You..." Chu Liyue pressed her hand. She knew that Yanqing had always been like this. It wasn't that he was targeting little Hachi. Little Hachi could only suppress the anger in her heart and snort. "What do you people know? If Master uses this pill of mine, he will refine his divine body in less than a year. As soon as he said this, the guards secretly looked at each other and revealed a tacit smile. This woman was so boastful. It was a pity that she wasn't that smart. There were many high god experts in the divine ruins world, and there were also many pills that could help one break through to the high god level. But they had never heard of a pill in this world that could guarantee that one could refine their divine body in less than a year after using it. This woman was too good at bragging. Chu Liu's gaze quickly swept across the few of them and she easily guessed their thoughts. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she chuckled softly and looked away. At this moment the wooden box in her hand had completely dissipated. Since the item has been verified and I have used it, can you let them in now? The guards hurriedly bowed. Yes. Princess consort, please. Everyone please. No matter what, they had to give face to the princess consort. Chu Liyue nodded at Sun Yi and the rest. This time they entered in a single file, and the barrier didn't produce any abnormal fluctuations. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across them and smiled. Since you're here, follow me to Changyi Mountain first. I haven't seen you for a while, so let's have a good chat. With that, she turned and walked in the direction of Changyi Mountain. The others followed closely behind. It was only when their figures gradually disappeared into the distance that the guards finally relaxed. Pfft. That girl called Little 8 just now was really arrogant and unbridled. She was full of nonsense. How could there be such a pill in this world? Didn't she do her homework before spouting nonsense? Saying it out loud would be a joke for no reason. I heard that they are the same as the princess consort, also from the Tianling dynasty. They probably think that we are as ignorant as the ordinary people from their place, right? So they are from outside the divine ruins world. No wonder. I really don't know how the princess consort chooses people to take in such people as her subordinates. Didn't you see the youngest youth over there? He looks to be only 13 or 14 years old. He's just a teenager. What can he do? I'm guessing that the princess consort chose these people for fun. I hope they don't cause any trouble. However, this seems to be a little difficult. They haven't even entered yet, but they've already caused a ruckus. Who knows what those people will do in the future? The guards shook their heads in disapproval. The princess consort is very outstanding. This is indisputable. It's a pity that there are too many people dragging her down. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1793. Yan Qing escorted Chu Liyue and the others to Changyi Mountain before bidding farewell and leaving with Umo. The princess consort and her subordinates would definitely have a lot to talk about. It was naturally inappropriate for outsiders to be present. Little Hachi pursed her red lips as she watched Yan Qing and Umo's departing figures. He ran fast. If not for her master's sake, she would have already made a move just now. Chu Liyue smiled as she brought the few of them back to her yard. Yan Qing and Umo are both nice people. He said that just now because he was concerned about my safety. Little Hachi, don't take it to heart. Who would care about that ice-cold face? Little Hachi rolled her eyes, her face full of disdain. Hypocrite. This was the kind of person she hated the most. Chu Liyue glanced at her and knew that she was still dissatisfied with Yan Qing. He chuckled softly and didn't continue to persuade her. Little Hachi might have a strange temper, but she was extremely smart. Now that they were in Yuntian Tower's territory, she wouldn't really get into a fight with them. Chu Liyue pushed open the door and entered, but Mu Hongyu stopped at the door. Why don't you guys talk first? I won't disturb you. She could tell that these people followed Lu Yu's lead blindly. They had traveled thousands of miles to come here, so they definitely had a lot to talk about between master and servant. Chu Liyue thought about it and didn't continue to keep her. He nodded. All right. Mu Hongyu sized them up curiously one last time, then quietly closed the door and left alone. Only Chu Liyue, Sun Yi, and the others were left in the room. Greetings, master. They bowed in unison. Chu Liyue chuckled and said, It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we last met. You must have had a hard time coming here this time. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Little Hachi walked over with seductive steps. Master still loves us dearly. Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. There are no outsiders here. Stand properly. Little Hachi pouted and stomped her feet like a spoiled child. Master is about to get married, so he doesn't care about little Hachi anymore. Chu Liyue helplessly held his forehead. She really didn't know what to do with little Hachi. Sun Yi glanced indifferently at little Hachi. Little Hachi suddenly became alert. She snorted but still stood there obediently. In this world only Sun Yi could subdue her. It wasn't because of anything else. It was because Sun Yi was much stronger than her. Furthermore, he attacked without mercy. Even Chu Liuyue's heart couldn't help but soften when faced with such a beautiful face. However, Sun Yi would never be like that. If he said that he would dislocate little Hachi's left arm, it definitely wouldn't be her right arm that would be dislocated. Hence, little Hachi was still a little respectful towards Sun Yi. Chu Liyue scanned the surroundings. This time there were a total of 6 people including Sun Yi and little Hachi. Other than the 2 of them, Wu Yao, Yu Jiu and Shifeng were all here. There was also little 13. Chu Liyue smiled and waved at little 13. 13, come over quickly. Haven't you grown taller recently? Little 13 had been obediently following behind everyone. When he heard Chu Liyue call him, he immediately became happy. The youth's eyes were bright and his appearance was delicate. His body, which was growing, seemed a little thin. There was still a hint of immaturity in his eyes, but there was also a hint of calmness that hadn't been there before. It was a sign that he was gradually growing up. Chu Liyue stood up. When little 13 walked in front of her, she realized that he was already slightly taller than her. She was stunned for a moment before she couldn't help but laugh. 13 has really grown up. 13's ears were slightly red, but his expression was very happy. In the past, everyone treated him like a child, but now he could clearly feel that everyone's attitude towards him had changed. In short, he was very happy. Growing up and becoming stronger meant that he could help Master in the future. Chu Liyue patted 13's shoulder lightly, then looked at everyone. Apart from Sun Yi, she really hadn't seen these people in a long time. How have you guys been? They all nodded. Sun Yi, I've been reading recently. Very good. Wu Yao, I've been practicing boxing recently. Very good. Yu Jiu, I've been practicing swords recently. Very good. I've been farming recently. Very good. Chu Liyue, seeing her speechless expression, 13 hurriedly raised his hand. I've been running recently. Very good. Chu Liyue looked at him with gratification. During puberty you should run more and exercise your body. 13 was very happy to be praised. A shy and bright smile bloomed on his delicate face. Master, you haven't praised 13 in a long time. Last time you said that 13 cooked well and praised 13 for eating a lot. Chu Liyue. Was that so? She coughed. It had been a long time since she last saw them, but these people were busy with their own things as usual. Where are the others? Sun Yi. Previously, His Highness the Holy Sun sent a message to Tianling. After knowing that you were going to marry the Holy Sun, I immediately informed the 13 Yu tribe. However, time was a little tight, so only the few of us rushed over. The others were further away, so they couldn't come together. In addition, for Wells and the others were stationed in Tianling. We had to leave someone there. Chu Liyue nodded slightly. I'm already very surprised that the few of you can come. Ever since her accident, the 13 Yu tribe had left Tianling and scattered. After such a long time, there hadn't been a chance to gather them back. Now that 6 of them had come, it was indeed quite good. Sun Yi looked at her and asked, Master, have you regained your memories? Chu Liyue nodded. Since she had broken through to become a supreme god again and summoned back the divine realm, she had naturally regained her memories. Sun Yi nodded. In fact, they had already guessed this before, but this was a serious matter, so they still had to confirm it before they could truly be at ease. Chu Liyue asked them a few more questions and everyone answered them one by one. She also briefly told them about some of the things that had happened recently. Wu Yao looked ashamed. I didn't expect Master to have suffered so much here. It's all our fault for coming too late. Chu Liyue smiled nonchalantly. Misfortune is a blessing in disguise. Although there were some twists and turns in the middle, fortunately, everything was daunting but not dangerous. Moreover, I gained more than I lost. Overall, it was actually a good thing. 13 clenched his fists. Master, then after this we won't go back. We'll stay in the Divine Ruins world with you. We'll protect you well. Sun Yi's expression changed slightly when he heard this and he looked at Chu Liyue. Master, what do you plan to do after this? Chu Liyue knew what he was asking. She paused but didn't immediately answer this question. Instead, her lips curled up in a smile. I have a friend who has been researching how to build a teleportation formation. If you have time, go and teach him. Sun Yi nodded. Yes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1794. Chu Luiyue asked with a smile. You didn't even ask who he was and agreed to it directly? Sun Yi nodded. Since he's your friend, there's naturally no problem. There weren't many people who could make her truly recognize this person as a friend. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly and shook her head. Sun Yi was too smart and sometimes she seemed a little boring. The friend she was referring to was naturally Lin Qifei. He didn't come this time, but she had already asked Mu Hongyu previously. Recently, Lin Qifei had been busy with the teleportation array in the academy just like before. According to Mu Hongyu, Lin Qifei's strength had increased greatly recently, and the teleportation array was already built. Some of the elders in the academy knew about it and were full of praise for him. However, they all thought that Lin Qifei was so diligent in studying the teleportation array because he was interested in it. But in reality, everything was because of a promise between him and Chu Luiyue. It seemed that things were progressing well. It's only a few days until the wedding. During this time you can stay at Changyi Mountain. I've already ordered people to tidy it up for you. If there's anything, just look for me directly. Little Hachi blinked her seductive eyes and moved closer to Chu Luiyue with a smile. Master, I've only heard of this Yuntian Tower before, but I've never been here. I wonder. As long as you don't cause trouble, you can stroll around here as you wish. Chu Luiyue immediately guessed what she was thinking and directly gave her an answer. Little Hachi's smile grew even wider. I knew Master was the best. Have you heard? A few of the princess consort's subordinates from the Tianling dynasty are also here. Just now there seemed to be an argument at the barrier. This news has already spread throughout the Yuntian Tower. Who doesn't know? Didn't you say that it was because one of the women had something on her that caused the barrier to react abnormally and stop them? Hey, that's what I want to say. Do you know what it is that woman is unwilling to hand over? What? Pills. She also said that as long as the princess consort uses that pill, she'll definitely be able to temper her divine body within a year. What? There's such a pill in the world? Why don't we know about it? She's probably just trying to put up a front. After all, she's from outside the Divine Ruins world. On a mountain peak not far from Duming Peak, a few people were walking up while talking about something. Although the Yuntian Tower was vast, the news spread among the clan members was fast. Not long after the incident happened over there, many people knew it. They had nothing to say about Chu Luiyue. Her talent was extraordinary, her strength was also strong, and her appearance was one in a million, a beauty that could topple cities. His only shortcoming was his family background. Shili. I feel that the princess consort is not without a backer. Senior Shangguanjing's name was resounding back then. Even now, a venerable blacksmith is very rare and honorable in the entire Divine Ruins world. Moreover, the princess consort is the direct disciple of the dean of Lingxiao College. He's also very powerful. Someone had a different opinion and refuted in a low voice. That's right, but think about it carefully. Senior Shangguanjing is weak and Dean Nan. His words and actions represent the entire Lingxiao College. He would never ignore the entire college for the sake of the princess consort. In short, the princess consort has to take care of herself if she's in trouble. That's true. I heard that the princess consort's relatives, friends, and subordinates are not very strong. Let's not talk about Mu Hongyu from Lingxiao College. Although she's strong, she doesn't have any background. As for the princess consort's father, he's only a stage 1 warrior. What's there to hope for? Although the words were unpleasant, they were all true. How could it be so easy to establish a foothold in the Divine Ruins world? At this moment, a snow-white and muscular figure suddenly flew out from the bushes and pounced on them. The man standing at the front who was talking was shocked and hurriedly retreated. However, he was fast, but the other party was faster. He only saw a blur in front of his eyes and a white shadow flashed past. Then his body flew out uncontrollably. Bang! There was a muffled sound. A few sharp scratches appeared on his chest and his flesh and blood rolled. The intense pain caused his face to turn pale. The remaining people were shocked and were about to attack, but they were stunned when they saw the other party. It was a white lion. Its fur was snow-white and its ice-blue eyes were indifferent and cold. At this moment, it was staring intently at the few of them. It lowered its body slightly as if it was ready to attack at any time. A strong murderous intent spread from its body. The remaining people's faces also turned pale. This was the Holy Sun's magical beast. How could they attack? Moreover, they were no match for it. Its cold gaze landed on the man who was covered in wounds on the ground, causing him to shiver. He swallowed the rest of his words and did not dare to make a sound. The air seemed to have stopped flowing and froze inch by inch. The few of them tensed up. After a while, one of them forced himself to speak. Lord Shueishui, we didn't mean what we said just now. Shueishui narrowed its eyes. Didn't mean it? Did they think it was stupid? Or? A low roar came from Shueishui's throat, and then it suddenly raised its claws. Since they didn't mean it, then it would also do it a few times unintentionally. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1795. Taking care of these people was a piece of cake for Shueishui. After a series of white flashes, the people present were all injured to varying degrees. Seeing that Shueishui was about to continue, one of them quickly shouted, Lord Shueishui. His Highness the Saint and the Princess Consort's wedding is imminent. It's really inappropriate if someone dies. Only then did Shueishui stop. It tilted its head and pondered for a moment, as if it was considering this person's words. The few of them held their breaths nervously and did not dare to move. They did not even dare to utter a single word. Every second that Shueishui was thinking was torture to them. Finally, Shueishui turned around and left. It was indeed inappropriate to delay Master's wedding because of these few people. Seeing that it had finally decided to leave, the few of them looked relieved that they had survived a disaster. However, after taking a few steps, Shueishui turned around again. Its cold and indifferent eyes swept across their faces as if it wanted to remember their faces clearly. Everyone understood the meaning in its eyes. It was waiting to settle the score with them. After taking a look, Shueishui left in a flash. The snow-white figure flashed before their eyes and soon disappeared. However, the hearts of the few people who stayed on the spot sank. Offending this person would not end well for you either. If they had known that Lord Shueishui was so protective of the princess consort and happened to be here, they would not have said that even if they were beaten to death. The few of them clutched their wounds and regretted it. Lord Shueishui is a vengeful person. I'm afraid it's over. One of them said regretfully. The other people's faces were deathly pale. As for the man who was attacked first, when he thought of what would happen to him, he was so angry that he fainted. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Everyone had to pay the price for their words and actions. Chu Luiyue was cultivating in her room. Suddenly a wave came. She opened her eyes and looked at the window. A big furry head poked in through the window. Because the body was too big and the window was too small, it was stuck. A pair of ice-blue eyes looked at Chu Luiyue innocently and pitifully. Roar. Chu Luiyue immediately got up and walked over, feeling helpless and amused. Shueishui. Why did he have to come in through the window every time? This small window can't accommodate your big body. As she spoke, she walked to the window and opened it even wider. Only then did she finally let Shueishui in. All right, you. Before he could finish his sentence, the liberated Shueishui immediately pounced on him. He hadn't seen it for a while and it had grown a lot bigger and heavier. This time Chu Luiyue almost couldn't catch it. Fortunately, her strength had increased by quite a bit and she barely managed to scoop Shueishui up. A ball of furry fur reported to her. Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh. Phew. Shueishui, why are you so much heavier than before? Is it because you've been eating and sleeping well in the Yuntian Tower that you've put on weight? Chu Luiyue was originally teasing, but after saying that she realized that Shueishui's condition seemed a little off. It didn't say anything and just leaned against her leg. Shueishui. Chu Luiyue looked down and saw Shueishui's expression. It didn't seem very happy. Sensing her gaze, Shueishui looked up. There was a faint light in its ice-blue eyes, and it seemed to be very wronged. He was slightly stunned. Strange, Shueishui was happy every time it saw her. This had never happened before. What's wrong with our Shueishui? Who bullied you? Chu Luiyue rubbed Shueishui's head. This was the Yuntian Tower. Even if there was bullying, it should be Shueishui bullying others, right? Why was it so wronged? Chu Luiyue bent down and smelled an extremely faint smell of blood. Her expression changed slightly as she grabbed Shueishui's claws. Only then did she see that there were fresh blood stains on its sharp nails. Who did you fight with? Chu Luiyue frowned. To be able to make Xue choose to fight in the Yuntian Tower. Just as she was filled with worry, Xue suddenly leaned its head over. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Xue didn't say anything. It only rubbed its big head carefully and clumsily against her shoulder. Wu, it seemed to be, comforting her. It's angry. Dumpling's voice suddenly sounded in her heart. It heard someone talking bad about you just now, so it fought with them. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. Her heart seemed to have been hit by something soft. Xue was protecting her. She smiled and hugged Xue's head. Xue, why lower yourself to the level of those people? Xue let out a low sound. Of course it was angry. Those people actually dared to talk about her like that. If it wasn't for the fact that it didn't want to delay the wedding, it wouldn't have let them off so easily. It would definitely take revenge in the future. Chu Luiyue rubbed Xue's head. Her eyes were slightly lowered, but she was thinking about something. Dumpling asked, you look, I told you those people don't know how to restrain themselves. They will only be obedient after being beaten up. Yu was right, but when would she be willing to make a move? She was really itching to do it now. Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment before she suddenly laughed. There are still 5 or 6 days before the wedding. Let them make a fuss one last time. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1796. Chu Luiyue comforted Xue for a while and carefully wiped the blood off its claws. She also promised that she would definitely get back at it in the future. Only then did Xue become happy again and run around her. It had indeed been staying in the Yuntian Tower to cultivate during this period of time. It was not allowed to come out if it did not meet its master's requirements. Therefore Chu Luiyue had been here for a long time before it was finally free. After throwing those messy things to the back of its mind, Xue became lively again. Chu Luiyue simply brought it to the courtyard to play. This courtyard was not big, but to Xue, as long as it was with Chu Luiyue, it was always interesting. Seeing that there were many stones in the courtyard, it rushed over curiously and used its claws to fiddle with them. Dong! A stone next to it rolled down and landed on its hind legs. Xue looked back with a blank expression. It did not move, this stone. Why did it move by itself? It used its hind leg to push the stone away. In the end, a third stone rolled over. This time the strength seemed to be a little stronger than before. Xue was a little impatient. It waved its claws and kicked the stone away. However, in the next moment the stone actually returned. It was heading straight for Xue's face at an even faster speed. The sound of air being torn apart was sharp. Xue was shocked and immediately turned to look. Only then did it see that when the stone flew over, it actually cut through the surrounding space, revealing a black space crack. Danger! Xue immediately became vigilant. Suddenly, a clear and gentle voice sounded. Stop fooling around. It was Chu Luiyue. After that, Xue watched with her own eyes as the originally aggressive rock suddenly concealed all of its aura and fell to the ground with a clang. It looked no different from an ordinary stone. Just looking at it like this was really hard to imagine. A second ago it was still full of killing intent, and the pressure from it made it tremble in fear. Xue shook its head and looked again in disbelief. Those few stones had stopped. Everything just now was like an illusion. However, it did not really think that it was all fake. Chu Luiyue walked over and grabbed Xue's ear. There aren't many people here. With your appearance, it's inevitable that they'll be a little lively. Xue was confused. Them? Who? Suddenly, its gaze froze. Wait, there aren't only these few stones around? Xue turned her neck stiffly as a trace of shock flashed across her eyes. There seemed to be stones scattered everywhere in the entire courtyard. Moreover, it was very similar to the one that wanted to attack. Xue instantly understood something as it looked up at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's lips curled. Xue was smart, she did not intend to hide. If you feel bored, you can ask Tuanzi to practice with you. Xue thought Xue's. Recently, she vaguely felt that her body seemed to have changed a little, so she spent most of her time sorting out the meridians in her body. Besides, what was the point of fighting with Xue? Presently, the number one enemy in her heart was Zichen. She could clearly sense that Zichen's strength had now faintly surpassed her own. She had to open her 5th meridian to have a chance of winning. Thinking of this, Tuanzi was full of energy and continued to practice. Chu Liyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Dumpling's talent and strength could already be considered the best of the best. After all, in the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, she was the only one who had opened her fourth meridian at such a young age. Originally, she was sure to win against Zichen. However, Zichen's luck was also heaven-defying. He was connected to Mao Zhen's qi and could be considered a real cheat. Even if he did not cultivate as Mao Zhen's strength increased, his combat strength would also increase. Even Chu Liyue was envious of this kind of luck. If Dumpling wanted to win against him, it was equivalent to winning against Mao Zhen. It was no wonder that she had been cultivating so diligently recently. By the way, have you told clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened on Divine Dragon Island? Dumpling responded. Yes. She had the inheritance of her ancestors, so she could easily contact Yi Zhao and the others. As soon as they came out of Divine Dragon Island, Chu Liyue reminded her to tell clan leader Yi Zhao and the others about what happened. Dumpling was a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix and the young master of the clan. It was indeed a big deal for her to go to Divine Dragon Island directly. Instead of hearing random rumors from other places, clan leader Yi Zhao and the others might as well take the initiative to tell them. It would make them feel more at ease. I hope clan leader Yi Zhao and the others won't be angry. Chu Liyue rubbed the space between his eyebrows. Tuanzi laughed loudly and said in a crisp voice, "Ah, you don't worry. Aren't we all fine and dandy? Why would Grandpa clan leader be angry?" Chu Liyue coughed and thought of Yi Zhao and the others looking at Dumpling with doting eyes. She felt even more guilty. She had promised to take good care of Dumpling before, but after leaving Phoenix Godly Mountain, she had been in constant trouble. First it was the God-slaying tomb, then Divine Dragon Island. Fortunately, Dumpling was fine. Otherwise, Chu Liyue really didn't know how to face clan leader Yi Zhao and the others in the future. When the wedding is over, I'll bring you back to Phoenix Godly Mountain to take a look. Although this trip didn't take too long, many things had happened in between. It was reasonable for him to go back and greet them. It could also be considered as a way of comforting them. Fortunately, the great Phoenix Dragon Clan's clan leader was Mao Zhen now, so she didn't care so much about Dumpling. Otherwise, the problem would be more difficult to solve. Okay. Dumpling didn't think too much about it. When she heard that she could go back, she immediately won happily. A familiar voice sounded. Chu Liyue looked up. "Master, why are you here?" she asked as she walked over. Nan Suhuai waved his hand. "I have nothing to do, so I wanted to come and see you." Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows. Oh. She knew her master best. Since he was here, there must be a reason. Nan Suhuai felt guilty under her gaze. He coughed a few times and finally gave in. All right. Actually, the reason why Master came over this time is because I have something to ask you." Chu Liyue invited Nan Suhuai to sit on a stone bench in the courtyard. Then she smiled and asked unhurriedly, "What do you want to ask, Master?" Nan Suhuai hesitated. After a long while, he raised his chin in a certain direction. Those few people, are all your subordinates?" Chu Liyue knew he was asking about Sun Yi and the others, so she nodded. "That's right. Why, did they get into trouble?" Nan Suhuai hurriedly waved his hand. "Of course not. They don't know how to cause trouble like you. No, Master means, those few children don't look old, but their talents are not bad. Especially the youngest one, his physique seems to be quite good. Do you have any intention of letting him go to the academy?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1797. Chu Liyue was stunned. She put down the cup of tea that had just reached her lips. She didn't expect her master to take a fancy to little 13. Her master's eyes were famous for being picky. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only taken her as his disciple after so many years. Being able to catch his eye was enough to prove that little 13 was indeed outstanding. Chu Liyue thought for a while and didn't immediately agree. She asked, "Why did Master suddenly think of this? Have you already checked little 13's potential?" Nan Suhuai shook his head. "Not yet. It's just that this child has been running all over the mountains these few days. Although he's young and is only a stage 6 warrior, his speed is comparable to a stage 9 warrior. Thinking about it, this child's physique should be pretty good. Originally, I did want to call him over to take a look. But since he's your disciple, I thought of asking for your opinion first." Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly. It's little 13's good fortune to be favored by Master. If he can really enter the academy to cultivate, it'll be a good thing for little 13. Please wait for a while, I'll call him over. She stood up and was about to call for him when she suddenly thought of something and asked, if little 13's conditions are good, does Master plan to take him as your disciple? Nansu Huai shook his head. Of course not. It's enough for me to have you as my disciple. Besides, if he's really as good as I think, there's someone more suitable to be his master in the academy. Chu Luiwei nodded in understanding. Little 13. She raised her voice slightly and shouted into the distance. Nansu Huai was a little surprised. That child seems to be halfway up the mountain now. It's so far away he can hear. Before he finished speaking, a thin figure of a young man quickly came from afar. He ran very fast and his movements were light and nimble. In the blink of an eye he was already in front of Chu Luiwei. Because he ran in a hurry, his forehead and the tip of his nose were covered in crystal-clear beads of sweat. A pair of pure and sincere eyes glowed with the unique youthful vigor of a young man. Chu Luiwei's eyes swayed when she saw him. These few years little 13 had really grown up. In her memory he was still a child. Master, are you looking for me? Chu Luiwei came back to his senses and nodded with a smile. Come here. With that she returned to Nansu Huai's side. Master thinks that your talent is not bad and wants to see your aptitude. If you pass, you can go to Lingxiao College to cultivate in the future. Chu Luiwei said concisely. 13 was taken aback. He looked at Nansu Huai, then at Chu Luiwei. This means, he has been here for several days. Of course he knew who the master was. He had also heard of the other party's identity. He just didn't expect that it would be related to him. When Chu Luiwei saw that he was stunned, he thought that he had startled the child. He laughed again and said, 13, what are you waiting for? Stretch out your hand. 13 obediently stretched out his hand. Nansu Huai put 2 fingers on 13's wrist. Then he separated a strand of origin power and sent it into 13's yuan meridian. A moment later, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. Chu Luiwei asked, Pastor, how is it? Nansu Huai didn't answer the question immediately. He just withdrew his hand, stood up, walked to 13's side and squeezed his shoulder. 13 looked at Chu Luiwei helplessly. Chu Luiwei gave him a reassuring look. 13 then continued to sit there quietly, allowing Nansu Huai to squeeze his shoulder, arm and other bones. After a while Nansu Huai stopped. At this moment the way he looked at 13 was very different from before. Master, how is it? Chu Luiwei felt a little guilty when she saw his reaction. Can 13 enter the Lingxiao College to cultivate? Of course she hoped that 13 could do better. Nansu Huai paused for a long time before he turned to Chu Luiwei. His expression was serious, but there was a smile in his eyes. If he can't enter the Lingxiao College, then I'm afraid not many people in the world can do it. That means he passed. Chu Luiwei's worried heart suddenly relaxed, and her lips curved up into a bright smile. Really? Can't be more real. Do you think I'll lie to you? Nansu Huai also smiled. He stroked his beard and said emotionally, I didn't expect you to have such a good seedling by your side. He has the Tianjing Yuan Meridian. And his physique is special. He's a natural martial artist. Chu Luiwei was stunned by Nansu Huai's words. She didn't know that 13 had such a top talent. She widened her eyes slightly and looked at 13. 13 blinked his eyes. His expression was pure and innocent, and there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. He seemed to be at a loss of what to do with the situation in front of him. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath. 13, why didn't you tell me before? 13 hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know about this. Nansu Huai asked curiously. You have such a good cultivation talent, but you haven't done any related tests before? 13 shook his head. Chu Luiwei just remembered that 13 really didn't check on this. When she found 13 he was still very young. It was snowing heavily in the imperial capital and it was bone-chilling. He was only wearing a thin layer of clothing and was curled up in a corner, covered in filth. At that time she just ordered the servants to bring him some food and clothes before leaving. However, after walking for a long distance, she realized that the child had been following her at a distance that was neither too far nor too close. At that time she was very surprised, because her carriage was very fast. Even a real cultivator might not be able to keep up with it, let alone a child. But the child's body was thin and weak, but his footsteps were very fast. He easily kept up with her. Most importantly, he followed them silently as if he was invisible. If she didn't notice that something was wrong and found him later, no one would have noticed his existence. Chu Liwei felt that this child was very interesting, so she brought him back. Originally, she wanted to see what his talent and aptitude was like, but many things happened at the time. She was busy dealing with them and didn't have the time to do this. Instead, she threw him to Xin-Yi and asked him to take care of him. Later, when she was free, she thought of 13 and asked Xin-Yi about him. Xin-Yi said that 13 was quite talented and suggested that Chu Liwei take him in and let them nurture him well. Chu Liwei agreed without much hesitation. Since then, 13 became the youngest member of the 13U Guard. Chu Liwei pursed her lips. Xin-Yi should know about 13's situation. Why didn't he say anything? Nan Suhui stroked his beard and sighed. Even if this child goes to Lingxiao College, he will definitely be one of the best among the geniuses there. Chu Liwei nodded and was about to speak when 13 took the initiative to speak. Master, can I not go to the college? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1798. The entire courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Liwei was stunned for a while before she understood what 13 meant. He said, he didn't want to go to Lingxiao College? Nan Suhui was also a little confused. He had never encountered such a situation before. In the world of divine ruins, countless geniuses worked hard to cultivate in the hope of entering Lingxiao College. Many people saw this as the glory of their lives and that of their entire family. It was no exaggeration to say that Lingxiao College was indeed the highest school that all the geniuses in the world flocked to. They had always been the ones to choose people and they had never been rejected like this. 13, you've just arrived in the world of divine ruins, so you probably don't know what Lingxiao College means. Chu Liwei sorted out her thoughts and felt that 13 was still a little young and didn't consider things thoroughly. That was why he said such words. She looked at 13 and said seriously, 13, this is an extremely rare opportunity. Many people want to enter the college but don't have the qualifications. She really didn't want 13 to miss this great opportunity. 13 shook his head. Master, I know all this. Before he came, his big brother and the others had already told him a lot about the world of divine ruins. Lingxiao College was the college where his master studied, so of course they had done a lot of research. He really didn't want to go. I know, it's my honor to be appreciated by the dean. But I've gotten used to following Big Brother and the others all these years. I think it's pretty good. 13 paused and took a deep breath as if he had mustered up his courage. I don't want to leave Big Brother and the others, and I don't want to leave you. In another courtyard of Changyi Mountain, Wuxiao was practicing boxing. Little Hachi was applying nail polish. Yujio was waving a wooden sword. Shifeng was plowing the ground. A few days ago he had started farming as soon as he arrived. Now fresh and green sprouts had already grown on the ground. It's the most reassuring to eat the vegetables you grow yourself. Shifeng straightened his back and sighed. He had a bad habit of only eating the vegetables he grew. During this period of time he had been busy running around and didn't have time to do these. The ones he brought from home were almost finished. It would take another month for the newly planted ones to ripen. Shifeng could only struggle to get by. But when he saw these fresh shoots, his mood improved a lot. Little Hachi glanced at him. You're even more pretentious than me. According to Shifeng's present realm, even if he ate one meal a month, it was nothing much. However, he was very stubborn and had to eat it every day. Moreover, if it wasn't planted by him, he would rather starve to death than eat it. Spoiled. Shifeng didn't mind. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. Sister 8, every time I cook you never miss a meal. Little Hachi glared at him. No one will think you're a mute if you speak less. Wuxiao had just finished a set of punches. When he heard this, he couldn't help but ask, can't all of you just stop for a day? Bickering every day. Even if you guys aren't tired of it, my ears are about to grow calluses. Both of them ignored him. However, Yujio interrupted. Fifth brother, you can't persuade anyone anyway. Why do you have to do this every time? Wuyao's eyebrows twitched. Practice your swordsmanship well. Yujio didn't mind. She put away her sword and chuckled. What a coincidence. I've also finished practicing. Wuyao couldn't be bothered with her. Yujio walked to the chair next to her and immersed herself in it. Let's not talk about anything else. The heaven and earth energy here is abundant. It's quite suitable for cultivation. Oh right. He suddenly thought of something and stood up abruptly. 13 was called over by Master just now. What was it for? At that time he was focused on practicing his swordsmanship, so he didn't pay much attention. Little Hachi changed her fingernails. Oh, it seems that Master's master has taken a fancy to him? This kid has been jumping up and down happily these past few days. He didn't restrain himself at all. So he was seen by others. Yujiu nodded, but she was a little worried. This means, does that person want to take him in as a disciple? But he's Master's master. This isn't appropriate, right? That's not likely. However, there's an 80% chance that 13 will go to Lingxiao College. Weiyao also walked over. Let's see what that kid says. Little Hachi scoffed. What's there to worry about? 13 is smart. Will he agree to go to Lingxiao College? That's true. It was rare for Shifeng to agree with little Hachi's words. He nodded. If he agrees, then we'll have taught a fool. At this moment, Sun Yi walked out of the room. The few of them instantly straightened up. Big brother. Sun Yi stood with his hands behind his back. His narrow and indifferent gaze swept across the few of them. He said calmly, 13 has his own opinions. Let him do whatever he wants. On the other hand, don't forget where you are. Be more vigilant about what you can and can't say. The few of them looked solemn. Yes. Sun Yi nodded. He actually didn't care about the few of them. Ever since that incident with Master, they were much more vigilant about everything. Also, if you hear any unpleasant words these few days, ignore them. We'll discuss them after Master's wedding. At this point he glanced meaningfully at little Hachi. Little Hachi could only raise her hand helplessly. Got it. Can't you see that I haven't been going out these few days? There were a few times when she heard some people sneaking around and almost hit them. In the end she decided to just stay in Changi Mountain. Out of sight, out of mind. Only then did Sun Yi nod in satisfaction. Everyone, continue with your work. After Sun Yi finished speaking, he glanced into the distance again before retracting his gaze and returning to the room. After 13 finished speaking, the entire courtyard fell silent again. Chu Luiyue didn't know what to say for a moment. She could tell that 13 was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Lingxiao College might be full of temptation to others and was a holy land that they yearned for. However, this was clearly not the case for 13. She paused and wanted to persuade him again. 13, have you thought it through? If you go to Lingxiao College, you'll only be cultivating. It doesn't mean that you'll leave us. After all, I'm also a student of the college, right? Once such an opportunity was missed, it wouldn't come again. However, 13's expression gradually became determined. He stared at Chu Luiyue and shook his head. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a headache coming on. If it were little Hachi and the others, she would just give the order directly. However, 13 was still a child. Nansu Huai sighed and smiled in relief. Forget it. It seems that this child isn't fated to be with Lingxiao College. There's no need to force it. Also, his talent doesn't seem to have been delayed. His cultivation progress is quite good. He should have a good master. Chu Luiyue tapped her finger lightly on the stone table. 13 naturally didn't have a master. He had always been brought up by Sun Yi and the others. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1799. Nansu Huai left with some regret. Before he left, he even reminded Chu Luiyue that 13 was indeed a good seedling and must be nurtured well in the future. Actually, Nansu Huai said this out of consideration for Chu Luiyue. After all, 13 was her subordinate. If he developed well, it would naturally be the best for her. 13 was still young and could not be seen clearly. Once he grew up, he would definitely not be underestimated. Chu Luiyue brought 13 and personally sent him out. When Nansu Huai's figure gradually disappeared into the distance, Chu Luiyue turned around and quietly looked at 13. 13 was a little nervous under her gaze and unconsciously lowered his head. Master, did I do something wrong just now? He asked nervously. Chu Luiyue looked at him. Follow me into the room. With that, she turned around and walked into the room. Shui, you go back first. Shui, who originally wanted to follow, looked a little disappointed when it heard this. It scratched its head and looked at her back reluctantly for a while. Oh, it would come back later. 13 hesitated for a moment but still followed. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat calmly. 13 stood not far in front of her, his hands clenched nervously. He lowered his head slightly and looked up at Chu Liwei from time to time. 13. You did nothing wrong. After a long silence, Chu Liwei spoke. But this did not make 13 relax. In his memory, his master had never spoken to him with such an expression and tone. He knew what it meant when he rejected Nan Su Huai's suggestion, so he still felt uneasy. Although Lingxiao College is a place that many people dream of going to, it does not mean that it is the same for everyone. You have your own reasons for not wanting to go. In the past, I have never forced you to do anything, and naturally I won't now. It's just that. She paused for a moment. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife as it swept past 13. I am a little surprised that you are so talented. 13 became more and more uneasy. I'm to blame for this. I should have paid attention to it back then, but I didn't know until now. From a certain point of view, she had neglected 13. 13 hurriedly said, No. This has nothing to do with Master. 13 should have taken the initiative to tell you. Chu Liwei smiled. Actually, it doesn't matter now. The most important thing is that your talent hasn't been delayed. On this point, she and her master had the same view. For a cultivator to become an expert, many factors were needed. Talent was the undisputed first condition. However, this did not mean that you would definitely be able to grow if you had talent. Without the guidance of a good master, without enough patience and perseverance, no matter how good one's talent was, it would be wasted. Fortunately, 13 was not delayed. Hearing her say this, 13 was finally relieved. How does Xin Yi usually teach you? Chu Liwei suddenly changed the topic and asked. 13 was stunned. Big brother just gave me a few books and told me to comprehend them myself. Then he told me to run. Big brother said that when I can run faster than him, I'll be able to help you. The corner of Chu Liwei's mouth twitched. Did Xin Yi really tell you that? 13 nodded honestly. Chu Liwei cursed inwardly. Xin Yi was indeed as cunning as before. He even lied to a child. What realm was he at? What realm was 13 at? Who knew how much effort and time it would take for 13 to catch up to him? She asked him to take good care of 13, but he just painted a big picture for the child to see. Chu Liwei rubbed her glabella. 13 continued. Also, during those few years, Big Brother wasn't around. I've been following 5th brother and 10th brother. Chu Liwei suddenly recalled that Xin Yi and Xijing had indeed stayed in Dahuang Swamp for a long time in order to help her guard the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Thinking about it this way, 13 had been through quite a lot. It was really rare for him to be able to grow to his current state in such a chaotic situation. Chu Liwei thought for a moment and asked again. Who else knows about your talent? 13 hesitated for a moment and said softly, Other than Big Brother and the others, no one else. In other words, everyone else in the 13 you guard knew about this, but she, the master, was the only one who didn't know anything? Chu Liwei took a deep breath, closed her eyes and waved her hand. Go back and called Xin Yi over. Xin Yi soon arrived. After he pushed open the door and entered, Chu Liwei glanced behind him. 13 didn't follow him. Xin Yi said, 13 hasn't finished his planned journey today, so I let him go first. Chu Liwei nodded. She had already asked everything that she should have asked. The remaining question should still be with Xin Yi. You knew about his talent long ago. Why didn't you say anything? Chu Liwei went straight to the point. Xin Yi's expression was calm. In the beginning I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find the right time. Moreover, at that time his health wasn't very good. I thought that I would tell you about this after his condition stabilized. I didn't expect that too many things would happen later on, so it dragged on until now. Chu Liwei was stunned. Xin Yi's words weren't without reason. But, you should have told me about such an important matter earlier. I had known earlier. Master, you don't have to worry. 13's cultivation has been very smooth all these years. Although I didn't tell you in time, it's not too late for you to know now, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1800. Chu Liwei was speechless for a moment. She leaned against the back of the chair, her eyes drooping as she fell into deep thought. After a while she smiled helplessly. You're right. She never doubted Xin Yi's loyalty to her. So even if Xin Yi didn't do things according to her wishes, she wouldn't be angry or worried. Xin Yi was extremely intelligent. Many times, it was indeed his existence that helped Chu Liwei avoid a lot of trouble. He was right. No matter when she found out about this, it didn't have much of an impact. Under their care 13 still grew up well. The current him was already so outstanding that even her picky master wouldn't hesitate to praise him. That was already enough. Chu Luiyue looked up at Sun Yi. Sun Yi stood there quietly, looking at her with a calm expression. His eyes were calm and composed. Take good care of 13 in the future. Sun Yi smiled and bowed. Yes. Time quickly came to the day before the wedding. According to the rules, the two who were about to get married couldn't meet each other on this day. 36 respected elder Ming came over with his men. His Highness the Saint ordered several embroiderers to rush through the night to make this. It took a full 3 months before it was finally completed. 36 respected elder Ming put down the meticulously carved agarwood box and looked at Chu Luiyue lovingly. Does your Highness want to open it to take a look? Chu Luiyue seemed to feel something surging in her heart. She gently brushed her hand over the box and shook her head. Xiu naturally gave me the best. This thing was so precious that she didn't even dare to open the box to take a closer look. Logically speaking, the bride's mother should be in charge of the wedding dress. But her mother had already passed away and couldn't do so. Xiu helped her with all these things and didn't make things difficult for her at all. So much time had passed in the blink of an eye since they had pledged their love to each other. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt very emotional. The outside was already bustling with noise and excitement. There were lanterns and colored banners everywhere, and the atmosphere was jubilant. The entire Yuntian Tower seemed to be immersed in a sea of joy. He had prepared this grand celebration for her. 36 revered elder Ming looked kindly at Chu Luiyue and suddenly said, "Actually, this old man has a few words to say to your Highness. Is it convenient for Princess Consort?" Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and smiled. "Respected elder, you're treating me like an outsider by calling me that. Just call me the." 36 respected elder Ming's gaze became even gentler. Good. In the future he would still address her as such in private. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had agreed, he waved his hand and dismissed his entourage. Soon only the two of them were left in the room. Chu Luiyue knew that what he was going to say had something to do with Xiu. "Please take a seat. If you have anything to say, just say it. You will listen." 36 respected elder Ming nodded, walked to the window and sat down. "You come and sit too." Chu Luiyue walked over and sat opposite 36 respected elder Ming. 36 respected elder Ming carefully sized up the girl in front of him. She was extremely beautiful and devastatingly beautiful. Her eyes were as bright as the galaxy. They were pure and sincere, and there was a rare calmness. Such a girl should be the most compatible with him. Actually, this old man didn't like you very much at the beginning. 36 respected elder Ming smiled and threw out these words. Chu Luiyue's gaze was calm. She knew that 36 respected elder Ming wanted to say more than this. 36 respected elder Ming blinked when he saw that she was so calm. "Why do you look like you're not worried at all?" Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. "You also said that it was at the beginning. If you still don't like me now, you wouldn't be telling me all this here, right? This girl is too smart. It's indeed not easy to fool her." 36 respected elder Ming suddenly felt defeated. These two, one was harder to deal with than the other. However, he quickly adjusted his emotions and narrowed his eyes, as if he was recalling something. "You should know a little about Her Highness' background." Chu Luiyue nodded. Back then her mother went out to train and accidentally met that man. He fell deeply in love with him. She knew that the people in the clan would definitely object to her finding a man with such a lowly background, so she privately pledged her life to him. She thought that she had found her true love, but she didn't know that the man was Emperor Yao Chen, and he already had a harem of 3,000. Since then she was disheartened and her health deteriorated day by day. In the end, before she died, she exhausted all her strength and hid Her Highness' identity. She thought that this would be foolproof, but she didn't expect that the people in the clan never gave up looking for her. Although she was gone, they still found Her Highness very quickly. At that time, everyone in the Yuntian Tower hated this matter to the core. They even felt ashamed of Her Highness' existence and planned to directly execute Her Highness. Fortunately, Her Highness summoned the infinite divine dial and displayed the most powerful bloodline power in the Yuntian Tower in the past 1,000 years. From then on, no one in the Yuntian Tower mentioned killing Her Highness anymore. At this point, 36 respected elder Ming's face revealed a trace of gratification, but it was quickly replaced by pity. However, this was only the beginning. Her Highness came from a special background and had no foundation. For a long time she was bullied in the Yuntian Tower. Although I could help her, I couldn't go too far. Otherwise it would only attract more jealousy and hatred. Time passed day by day and she gradually grew up. I don't know when it started, but she became cold, bloodthirsty and crazy. That's when his nickname, God of Slaughter, came into being. 36 Respected Elder Ming let out a long sigh. Although her strength increased day by day, her temperament seemed to become colder and colder. Sometimes, it even made people wonder if she had already cut off all her emotions and desires and became a puppet that only knew how to kill. Chu Liuyue's heart also moved slightly. Although she had some understanding of these matters before, today was the first time she had heard a complete description. Even though many years had passed and even Rong Xiu himself mentioned it, she didn't care much. When she heard it, her heart still throbbed with pain. At this point, 36 Respected Elder Ming looked at Chu Liyue. Fortunately, Her Highness met you later. Chu Liyue pointed at herself. Me? Is he? 36 Respected Elder Ming seemed to have sunk into a distant memory. I remember that a few years ago Her Highness went out to train alone and didn't return for a long time. When I heard news of Her Highness again, she was already a student of Lingxiao College. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1801. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She and Rong Xiu had indeed met before going to Lingxiao College. At that time she had just finished her training in the Dahuang Swamp and came to the Divine Ruins world by chance. In the end she met Rong Xiu directly. At that time the two of them were being hunted down. In a moment of desperation they chose to join forces. After a while they got to know each other. After that she said that she wanted to go to Lingxiao College to cultivate. Rong Xiu agreed almost without hesitation. Chu Liyue subconsciously thought that Rong Xiu was like her, going to Lingxiao College. After all, although she was not familiar with the Divine Ruins world at that time, she had stayed in the Dahuang Swamp for so long and heard a lot of relevant things. Lingxiao College was the top college in the Divine Ruins world. Who wouldn't yearn for it? Actually, at that time the people at Yuntian Tower didn't know of your existence. They only thought that His Highness wanted to go to the college to cultivate. It wasn't until later when His Highness said that he wanted to return to Yaochen that I realized that something was wrong. At this point, 36 Respected Elder Ming paused for a moment. You should know that His Highness doesn't have any feelings for Yaochen. If not for a special reason, he definitely wouldn't go back. Before that, Rong Xiu had always claimed that he was ill and recuperating at Mingyue Tianshan. In reality, he had only stayed at Mingyue Tianshan for a very short period of time. Most of the time he still stayed in the Divine Ruins world. And that time His Highness didn't return for a long time. Later on this old man met you. At first he only thought that His Highness was infatuated with a woman, so he was a little unhappy. But later he realized that it was precisely because of this woman that His Highness started to become like a normal person. He had 7 emotions and 6 desires and he was tied down and lovesick. At that time, 36 Respected Elder Ming thought that this woman was definitely not ordinary. It wasn't until later that he finally had the opportunity to meet Chu Liyue. At first sight he fell in love with this girl. She was intelligent, quick-witted and pure. He had met countless people in his life and his eyes were very sharp. After meeting Chu Liyue he liked him very much. That was why he gave him so many gifts. All these years this old man has never seen your highness spend so much effort on anyone else. Except for you. All his joys and sorrows were probably caused by her alone. Your highness has suffered a lot in the past and has almost no one close to you. Now that you've met a woman who's in love with you, it's really rare. In the future, I hope that the two of you can grow old together. 36 Respected Elder Ming gently patted Chu Liyue's hand and said solemnly. Chu Liyue's nose tingled slightly, but a smile bloomed on his lips. All right. After 36 Respected Elder Ming left, Chu Liyue sat quietly in his room for a long time. By the time he recovered from his shock, he caught sight of the agarwood box by the side, and his heart skipped a beat. She stood up and walked over. There was no lock on the box, but there was a totem of the Yuntian Tower on the top. Chu Liyue thought for a while and put the universe ring in her hand on it. The totem dissipated. Chu Liyue reached out and opened the box. What entered her eyes was a stretch of red that was as intense and elegant as flames. It was like a piece of red cloud in the evening sky that was meticulously woven. It was soft and light to the touch, and there was a faint flicker of golden light. It was gorgeous, solemn, and moving. The phoenix coronet's craftsmanship was complicated, as if it was meticulously carved by the heavens. There was a golden phoenix spreading its wings and flying, and a bright red jade bead in its mouth. It was sparkling and translucent, and the quality was excellent. The tassels on both sides hung down, adding to the beauty and gentleness. Chu Liyue's hand gently brushed across the phoenix coronet, and a thought suddenly appeared in her mind. She was really going to marry Rongxiu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1802. Chu Liyue slept soundly that night. He even had a long dream. In her dream, most of the time she and Rongxiu met, got to know each other, and fell in love with each other. Those scenes kept flashing in her mind. Every scene was so vivid that it seemed like it happened yesterday. At this moment, Chu Liyue realized that she and he were more than 10,000 miles apart. But in the end they were still together. People who were destined to be together would always hold each other's hands tightly no matter what. Early in the morning there was a knock on the door. Luyu. Chu Liyue was already awake. When she heard the voice, she knew that it was Mu Hongyu. She walked over and opened the door. Mu Hongyu rushed in excitedly. When she saw that Chu Liyue still had her hair down, her eyes widened slightly. Luyu, why haven't you started to dress up? Chu Liyue smiled helplessly. What's the hurry? Because she and Rongxiu were both in Yuntian Tower, and Chang'e Mountain was not far from Duming Peak, they could save a lot of tedious procedures. Moreover, the wedding ceremony would officially start at noon. There were still a few hours to go. Mu Hongyu thought about it and agreed. But maybe because it was her first time attending her best friend's wedding, she was very excited. Her heart was beating wildly and she could not calm down. But you still have to prepare early. Washing up, dressing up, changing into the wedding dress. These will take a lot of time. As Mu Hongyu nagged, she forcefully pulled Chu Liyue to the dressing table and pressed her down on the chair. Today is your wedding, Luyu. Of course you have to dress up. You have to be the most beautiful bride. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Liyue's soft hair. Her face was flushed and her almond-shaped eyes were bright. Let me help you. After saying that, she prepared to attack. However, Mu Hongyu soon discovered a crucial problem. She didn't seem to know how to do her hair. Normally, she would tie her hair up simply, but on such a grand occasion, it was obviously not possible. I've been studying it for a long time. She had spent a lot of time on this, but when it came to this, she realized that she wasn't skilled enough. Something went wrong. Puchi. A delicate laugh rang out, accompanied by the crisp sound of broken jade beads colliding against each other. Let me handle this matter. Chu Liyue and Mu Hongyu turned around and saw little Hachi walking over with a smile on her face. She naturally took the wooden comb from Mu Hongyu's hands. Her voice was soft and charming, almost able to make people's bones melt. Little girl, watch carefully. Mu Hongyu was stunned. The other party didn't seem to be much older than her, but her charm was too strong. Comparing the two, the difference was indeed quite big. Mu Hongyu nodded subconsciously and obediently said, "Oh." Little Hachi looked at her with a smile, then reached out and pinched Mu Hongyu's cheek. Good girl. Mu Hongyu had never been teased by a woman like this before. She immediately blushed. Chu Liyue looked at little Hachi speechlessly. She was indeed attractive to both men and women. Little Hachi looked away and stared at Chu Liyue in the mirror. Then her lips curved into a smile. Master, don't worry. No one is more beautiful than you today. After saying that, she began to help Chu Liyue comb her hair. Little Hachi's soft and silky hair seemed to be particularly obedient in her hands. She didn't see how she did it, but her fair and delicate fingers moved back and forth, and the luxurious and beautiful hairstyle gradually took shape. Little girl, bring me the phoenix coronet. Little Hachi said gently. Mu Hongyu reacted and quickly responded. Chu Liyue pointed to the location. Mu Hongyu walked over and opened the wooden box. Soon after, she sucked in a breath of cold air. Luyu, this phoenix coronet is too beautiful. She had seen many treasures and jewelry, but none of them could be compared to this phoenix coronet. There was no way to describe it in words. The moment it entered her eyes, the only feeling it gave her was beautiful. There was even a trace of shock. Yuntian Tower was indeed a first-class family. This gift was indeed extraordinary. Mu Hongyu sighed as she carefully took out the phoenix coronet and handed it to Chu Liyue. Little Hachi glanced at it and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. This was the only thing that was worthy of her master. She didn't hurry to help Chu Liyue put it on. Instead she asked her to change into the wedding dress. This time, it was Mu Hongyu who carefully took out the wedding gown. After experiencing the baptism of the phoenix coronet, Mu Hongyu's mental endurance had increased a lot. After she helped Chu Liyue change, she covered her mouth and tried her best not to scream. However, her eyes, which were full of amazement, betrayed her feelings at this moment. Little Hachi raised her eyebrows proudly and began to put on Chu Liyue's makeup. She was very skillful with her hands and this kind of thing was a piece of cake for her. Moreover, Chu Liyue was very beautiful. After a while, little Hachi looked at Chu Liyue's face with satisfaction. That's right. Of course, on the wedding day she had to be the most beautiful. Then little Hachi took the phoenix coronet and carefully helped Chu Liyue put it on. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but say, "Liyu, I have never seen anyone more beautiful than you." Chu Liyue looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were like stars and her red lips were slightly red. She was dressed in a red wedding dress that was like clouds and rosy clouds. She was elegant and beautiful. For a moment she was in a trance. Indeed, even she had never seen herself like this. At this moment, a low and pleasant voice came from outside. I have come to pick you up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1803. It was a voice that she was very familiar with. Chu Liyue suddenly came back to her senses and turned her head to look. At this time the door was closed but it was already lively outside. The sound of ritual music came faintly and lingered in her ears. She heard the laughter of many people. But in the noise of this world only his voice was the clearest. He said that he had come to pick her up. Chu Liyue stood up and walked towards the door. She put her hand on the door. It was slightly cold to the touch but her palm was boiling hot. She took a deep breath and gently pushed the door open. Bright sunlight surged in an instant. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw a face that could not be more familiar. He was slightly stunned. Today Wuxia was wearing a red robe which was rare. A black jade belt around his waist easily outlined his waist, making his shoulders wider and his waist narrower and his figure more slender. His face, which had always been like a banished immortal, seemed to be stained with the smoke and fire of the mortal world at this time, and was not as cold as before. Everyone was silent for a moment. Wuxia's eyes also flashed with a touch of blazing amazement. The woman in the red wedding dress walked out from behind the door. There was a beauty clear and graceful. She could topple a city with one look and then a country with another. It was probably talking about such a beauty, right? In fact, many people present had seen Chu Liyue before. She had an extremely beautiful appearance but most of the time she was barefaced. Now she was wearing a phoenix coronet and a robe, which made people feel that she was a different person. There was actually such a woman in this world. When she appeared, everything around her seemed to dim. Only she was lively, bright and extremely bright. The so-called disaster was probably nothing more than this. Or, a fairy with such an appearance should not have come to the mortal world in the first place. A year of silence. Everyone held their breaths and focused, as if they were afraid that they would disturb someone if they spoke. Chu Liyue blinked. In an instant, it seemed that thousands of stars were surging. Wuxia. She called out softly. Wuxia stared at her as if he wanted to carve her appearance into his heart. The scorching heat almost made Chu Liyue's entire body burn. After a while he finally reached out his hand. Chu Liyue looked at his hand. His palm was thick and strong and his palm was covered with a thin layer of calluses. Only she knew how warm that hand was. She reached out her hand. Almost immediately Wuxia held her hand tightly. It was as if he was afraid that the person in front of him would disappear in the blink of an eye. It wasn't until he confirmed the soft and delicate temperature in his hand that he finally relaxed. He suddenly leaned over and whispered in her ear. You is truly, extremely beautiful. Chu Liyue's face was slightly hot, but there was also an indescribable steadiness and warmth in his heart. Finally, I'm beside him. Wuxia held her hand tightly. Come with me. The wedding ceremony was held in the ethereal hall. At this moment the ethereal hall was already filled with guests. Almost all the people from the various clans and sects in the Divine Ruins world were gathered here. They were all waiting for the two main characters of the wedding. In the innermost seats were Shangguan Jing, Shangguan Yu, Chu Ning, and 36 respected Elder Ming. When the crowd saw this, they couldn't help but discuss. Shouldn't the seats at the top be reserved for the elders of the Holy Sun and the princess consort? Why is the one sitting there 36 respected Elder Ming? I don't even recognize the few people beside him. Haven't you heard? After that commotion, the clan head of the Yuntian Tower fell into a coma a few days after returning. He hasn't woken up yet. We all know what kind of background this Holy Sun has. Since the clan head is unconscious, the only one qualified to sit here is 36 respected Elder Ming. After all, he has been treating the Holy Sun like a teacher and father all these years. What you said makes some sense. But the three people beside him, where are they from? Could they be the princess consort's family? It's a long story. Do you see the one in the middle? That's the famous Shangguan Jing. A true weapon refining venerable. I heard that he's the princess consort's Taizu. And the other two seem to be the princess consort's fathers? I've heard that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was born in the Tianling dynasty outside the Divine Ruins world. But after a few twists and turns she came to the Divine Ruins world with great difficulty. Since these two are her fathers, it's normal for them to sit here together. Normal? The one on the left is still alright. He's a demigod, but the one on the right is only a stage 4 warrior. It's difficult for such a person to see us normally. But now he's sitting in front of us and is more honorable than us. This princess consort is really amazing. You can't say that. Do you see the old man beside him? That's Nansu Huai, the dean of Lingshao College. He's the princess consort's master. It's said that he dotes on his disciple very much to the point of doting on her. Be careful not to let him hear these words. We'll get into trouble later. Someone disagreed. So what? Most of the people here today are here for the sake of the Yuntian Tower. Besides, even if they really heard it, do you think they'll make a scene with us here? For the sake of a Shangguan Yu? It's really not worth it. Nansu slowly clenched his hands in his sleeves and glanced at the person who spoke. Shangguan Jing raised his eyes slightly and then quickly looked away. At this moment, accompanied by the music of the ceremony, the announcement was clearly heard. His Highness the Holy Sun has arrived. The princess consort has arrived. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1804. The ethereal hall soon fell silent. Everyone raised their heads and looked toward the entrance of the hall. A perfect couple was walking over hand in hand. In an instant, all the light seemed to have gathered on the two of them. It was bright and dazzling. They clasped their hands and walked side by side towards the main hall step by step. There seemed to be an indescribable aura that shrouded the two of them, forming a small world that isolated them from the others. That small world could only contain the two of them. It couldn't contain anyone else. Shangguan Jing and the others were invigorated and they subconsciously straightened their backs. 36 respected Elder Ming also felt a myriad of emotions in his heart. The Holy Sun had been thinking about this matter for far too long. Now he finally got what he wanted. He had never seen such an expression on the Holy Sun's face before. Joy, pride, and gentleness. There was also a myriad of emotions that he didn't conceal in the depths of his eyes. Everyone's gaze followed them and there was only one person in his eyes. This scene was so beautiful that no one could bear to disturb it. Many of the people gathered in the hall had complicated expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. No one would have thought that the Holy Sun of the Yuntian Tower would really marry such a princess. Of course, many of them had interacted with Chu Luiyue before, so they didn't dare to underestimate her. All kinds of gazes fell on the two of them. Rong Xiu didn't mind and Chu Luiyue didn't mind either. They held hands tightly as if they would never separate. Finally, the two of them stood in the middle of the hall. Bow to the heavens and earth. The ceremonial official's voice was loud and clear. This voice reverberated clearly in the hall. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue turned around and bowed. Chu Luiyue didn't believe in the heavens or fate. However, after meeting Rong Xiu in this life, she would rather believe that this was the heavens taking pity on her. Even though they were separated by thousands of miles, he still came before her. Despite the disparity in their statuses, he had chosen her from the very beginning. Chu Luiyue's hand lightly scratched his palm. Rong Xiu held her hand even tighter. Second, bow to your parents. He turned around and bowed again. Chu Luiyue clearly saw Taizu's tightly clenched hands, as well as his father and father's slightly red eyes. In an instant, countless images flashed before his eyes. Imperial Father smiled dotingly and praised her proudly. The fire in the Tianling royal family's ancestral hall, as well as the bone-piercing pain. When he woke up again and dragged his body back to the Chu clan, the first thing he saw was his father's figure rushing over, and his father's anxious greeting. For her, he had been tossed around many places and had gone through many trials and tribulations. Even if his clothes were tattered and he was covered in wounds, he still insisted on seeing her one more time. The nervous and perturbed look in his eyes after knowing her identity. When he heard her call him Daddy, he was willing to give up everything. And along the way, the Taizu had protected him countless times. Tu Liyue's eyes became hot, and the tip of his nose became slightly sour. She had always been loved and protected. No matter how much pain she had experienced, there was still a family that would become her warm arms. Husband and wife bow to each other. Chu Liyue raised her gaze slightly and looked at Rong Xiu, looking into his deep phoenix-like eyes. She saw her figure clearly reflected in them. She saw the gentleness and love in his eyes. Her red lips curved slightly and she smiled. To be able to marry your highness in this life, I have no regrets. Rong Xiu looked at her and smiled. He enunciated each word clearly. No, it should be said that to be able to marry you, Rong Xiu is blessed by 3 lifetimes. Digression. There's no more in the morning, everyone go to bed early. There are probably more than 10 chapters during the day. The chapters will drop around noon, 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Please check. I heard that some people want me to update 50 chapters a day. Although I didn't manage to do it, but for the next 3 days I'll update more than 10 chapters a day. What? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1805. The two of them bowed to each other. The ceremony is complete. As the chanter's clear voice spread throughout the grand hall, fireworks were set off from the numerous mountain peaks outside of Duming Peak. Bright patterns bloomed in the sky. Even during the day one could still see the sparkling radiance. 36 revered Elder Ming stroked his beard and sighed. The Yuntian Tower has not been so lively for a long time. Now that His Highness had finally gotten what he wanted, he was relieved. Rong Xiu held Chu Liyue's hand tightly, and the two of them walked side by side toward the innermost part of the great hall. Over there was an honorable bench. It was obviously reserved for His Highness the Holy Sun and the Princess Consort. Crimson clouds with a red tail as thin as gauze silently streaked across the black jade floor. As she walked, the tassels on the phoenix coronet swayed gently. The woman's skin was as smooth as jade, and her eyes were like a painting. What was even rarer was that she exuded an indescribable aura of spirituality. Just by standing there she already surpassed the thousands of sceneries in the world. Her thick and long eyelashes fluttered gently, and the light in her eyes was like a gust of wind, gently stirring the thousands of stars in the night sky. Rong Xiu looked at her, his eyes deep. At this moment he knew that everyone's eyes were focused on her. If it was in the past he would definitely be unhappy. But today was different. This was their wedding. From now on she was his princess consort. She was so dazzling and magnificent. She was his. The most moving treasure in the world was finally in his hands. The two of them sat down. Rong Xiu reluctantly retracted his gaze from her and looked at the crowd in the great hall. After the ceremony it was time for the banquet. But before the banquet began, there was still an extremely important process to go through. Gifts from the various families. After all, the Yuntian Tower was a first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. It was famous and had a noble status. Now that it was the wedding of the powerful Holy Sun Rong Xiu, of course, the various families had to prepare generous gifts to celebrate. The richness of this congratulatory gift was very important. On the one hand, it reflected the wealth and background of the person who gave the gift. On the other hand, it also showed that they were close to the Yuntian Tower. Today is Ai's wedding. Welcome everyone. If there is any neglect, please forgive me. Rong Xiu said as he raised his glass. Everyone raised their glasses as well. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Chu Liyue sat next to Rong Xiu. When he picked up the wine cup in his hand, he found that it had been replaced with green tea. She pursed her lips slightly and took a sip, hiding the smile in her eyes. Then she put down her wine glass. Rong Xiu tilted his head. Is it tasty? His gaze fell on her moist and full lips, and his eyes suddenly darkened. Chu Luiyue blinked and nodded. It was rare for her to be so obedient and a little naive. She was like a cat that had put away its sharp claws and turned into a soft ball, making people want to hold her in their arms. Rong Xiu's fingers gently rubbed the wine cup twice and looked at the bright and warm sunlight outside. It was only noon. He drank the rest of the wine in one gulp. For the first time he felt that time was so unbearable. The sect master of the celestial sect gives 2,000-year-old flying frost immortal pearls. The sect master of the purple phoenix sect gives a pair of night sea coral screens. The house master of the snowstorm house gives a green color great origin pill. The announcer's voice kept ringing. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. The Yuntian Tower's status in the world of divine ruins was indeed very high. Almost all the gifts given by the families were rare treasures. Ordinary families and clans had never seen them before, let alone give them away. Only the real big families and clans could have such confidence and foundation. Rong Xiu listened at the side with a faint smile on his lips, and his eyes were relaxed. Everyone watched from below and sighed with emotion. It turned out that this god of slaughter could also show such a smile. And all of this was obviously because of the woman beside him. Time passed slowly. In the main hall there was a low discussion. Those who have presented their gifts are all first-rate families in the world of divine ruins. It's obvious that they are all here because of the Holy Sun. But why hasn't the princess's people come out to present their gifts until now? Someone asked doubtfully. You don't know? The princess that the Holy Sun married is from outside the world of divine ruins. This time for the wedding ceremony, they specially invited the princess's father and friends. But, you know that kind of background, what good things can they bring? Someone laughed mockingly. When the families and sects in the world of divine ruins finish presenting their gifts, it should be their turn, right? But I guess there's nothing to see. Why not? I'm looking forward to seeing what the relatives and friends of this princess, who has won the Holy Sun's favor and insisted on marrying no one else but her, will send. If they are all unpresentable, wouldn't the scene be exciting? Tisk tsk. You're really cunning. I like it. That scene, just thinking about it makes me feel good. When that time comes, I'm afraid Rong Xiu won't be able to hold back his face. Everyone laughed secretly. In the past few years, Rong Xiu had been famous in the world of divine ruins. Some people envied and respected him while others were jealous and resentful. There were also some who wanted to marry Yuntian Tower, but were directly rejected by Rong Xiu. How could the women in their families not be better than this lowly Shangguanyu? Although everyone present was talking and laughing, many of them had their own plans in their hearts. There were more than one or two people who wanted to see a joke. If this princess was embarrassed today, it would be equivalent to the Holy Sun, Rong Xiu losing face. Although many people lowered their voices, the ethereal hall was only so big and most of the people present were top-notch experts. Who wouldn't be able to hear them? He had said that on purpose. On one hand, many of the clans present were first-rate clans, and they weren't inferior to Yuntian Tower. On the other hand, they felt that they were speaking the truth. If the truth was unpleasant to hear, how could they not be allowed to speak it? 36 respected elder Ming frowned and looked at Rong Xiu. However, he saw that Rong Xiu's expression was normal, as though he didn't care about these words. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Luiyue. Find this person is still smiling. 36 respected elder Ming sighed in his heart. I really can't see through them. At this moment, Shangguan Jing suddenly spoke. Yuera. This low and deep voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. The ethereal hall fell silent. Chu Luiyue looked over. Taizu? Shangguan Jing smiled. Where you and Rong Xiu have finally come to fruition today. Taizu is happy. Taizu is used to living a carefree life, and he hasn't saved anything for you over the years. He doesn't have anything else to give you. Take this. As he spoke, he took out a bronze universe ring from his hand. Chu Luiyue smiled like a flower. Anything given by Taizu is naturally the best. Taizu waved his hand and said casually. It's just 6 supremacy god artifacts. What's so good about them? In the future, Taizu will personally forge a few more for you. At the very least, they have to be perfect. Mobile users, Please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1806. Everyone in the ethereal hall gasped in astonishment. 6 supremacy artifacts. Are you kidding me? One had to know that to most of the people present, obtaining an Emperor Divine artifact was already a great thing. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a few clans who fell out with Lingxiao College over the Crimson Heaven Sword. They knew that Shangguan Jing was a supremacy blacksmith, so it was within their expectations that he would give out supremacy artifacts. However, they didn't expect Shangguan Jing to give out 6 supremacy artifacts right off the bat. He even promised to give out a few more to make up for the 10 supremacy artifacts, where supremacy artifacts is common as cabbages these days. Everyone was stunned. What they didn't know was that even though Shangguan Jing had always been a loner, he had never lost to other blacksmiths of the same level. Every time, not only would he forge a supremacy artifact for himself, he would also win the treasures that the other party had painstakingly forged. Even if they were slightly inferior to Ouyangming's, they were still genuine venerable artifacts. Putting everything else aside, when it came to supremacy artifacts, he was indeed rich. Furthermore, it was the kind of wealth that no one present could match up to. Seeing Shangguan Jing's casual attitude, many people felt as though they had been slapped in the face. They were just mocking the princess consort's relatives for not being able to give out anything valuable, but Shangguan Jing was the first to give out a trump card. Just these 6 supremacy artifacts alone were already more valuable than most of the other supremacy artifacts. Chu Luiyue was also a little surprised. She knew that Taizu should have some valuable artifacts, but she didn't expect Taizu to give out 6 supremacy artifacts at once. After a brief moment of shock, Chu Luiyue took the artifacts with a smile. Thank you, Taizu. Shangguan Jing laughed heartily. It's good that you likes it. Hurry up and put it on. Chu Luiyue was wearing the holy ring that Rong Xiu gave her on her right hand. After pondering for a moment, she decided to put the one that Taizu gave her on her left hand. After trying it on, only her thumb fit. Looking at it now, it looked more like a thumb ring. Everyone's faces paled as they watched from below. At this moment, Shangguan Yu had a ring on his left hand that contained 6 venerable grade divine artifacts. The holy ring on his right hand symbolized the supreme status of the Yuntian Tower. Just this alone was enough to make many people look up to him. At this moment, Nansu Huai burst into laughter. Senior Shangguan gave such a valuable gift right off the bat. It's really embarrassing. Everyone turned to look. What did the dean of Lingxiao College intend to give her? Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents. Master has already given you many things. No matter what master gives you, will like it. You brat. Nansu Huai snorted with a smile. This was the truth. Previously, when Yue was still in the academy, he had indeed helped her open many back doors. But now that it was her wedding, she naturally had to prepare a generous gift. Nansu Huai took out 2 green jade tokens. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She seemed to have thought of something as shock flashed in her eyes. Could it be? This green jade token symbolizes the status of an elder of Lingxiao College. Those who hold this token can enter and leave Lingxiao College at will and enjoy the treatment of an elder. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist. The 2 green jade tokens flew to Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. The 2 of them reached out to take the tokens. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and saw her name engraved at the bottom of the token. You. She turned her gaze and saw the word Xiu, engraved on Rong Xiu's green jade token. Just inject your force into it and it will be activated, Nansu Huai said with a smile. Chu Luiyue nodded. She held her breath and injected some force into the token. Buzz. The green jade token shone brightly. A number gradually appeared. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes wide. This is... Nansu Huai saw her expression and smiled even more proudly. I have already deposited some points inside. This should be enough for the 2 of you to use for a while, right? There is such a bonus. It was a pleasant surprise. How could it only be used for a while? Chu Luiyue felt that even if she did whatever she wanted, she would not be able to spend it all in 10 years. Outsiders might not know what this number meant. But she knew. With these points, wouldn't she be able to pick the herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley as she wished? Wouldn't she be able to read the Xian array medical books in the library as she wished? The gift that her master had given her had truly hit the bottom of her heart. Chu Luiyue raised her head, her eyes shining brightly. Thank you, master. She suddenly felt that master was more amiable. Nan Suhui raised his finger and shook it. Actually, these are not the most important things. Do you know the most important thing about this green jade token? Chu Liwei was stunned. The green jade token was exclusive to the elders of the school. Master did not mean that she and Rongxiu would become the elders of the school. He only meant to give them the green jade token. Then, did it mean something else? Nan Suhui put one hand behind his back and raised his chin slightly. He still had a smile on his face, but there was a hint of dignity in his eyes that could not be disobeyed. The holder of the green jade token will receive the highest protection of the Lingxiao College. If anyone hurts you, the Lingxiao College will avenge you at all costs. Every word was sonorous and forceful. It was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's ears in the main hall. Everyone looked at each other and suddenly understood something. Nan Suhui was going to protect Shangguanyu to the end. What did he mean by that? Lingxiao College would not stand by and do nothing if someone were to offend them in the future. Rongxiu was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, so he did not need these things. It was obvious that these things were specially prepared for Shangguanyu. In the past, Nan Suhui had always stood behind her and stood up for her as the master of Shangguanyu. In the future, the entire Lingxiao College would be her backing and trump card. Anyone who was afraid of Lingxiao College would have to be afraid of Shangguanyu in the future. How was this a gift? It was clearly a gift of power. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1807. Everyone in the ethereal hall was shocked before they fell into a long period of silence. How could this be? How could this be? As the school head, shouldn't Nan Suhui do things impartially? How could he give away the entire Lingxiao College so openly just to support Shanghaiyu? Wouldn't the other elders and students of Lingxiao College object to this? Nan Suhui's actions aren't too appropriate, right? Indeed. Even if Shanghaiyu is his disciple, he shouldn't dote on her like this. How would the other students in the academy think of this? I've heard that Nan Suhui dotes on his disciple a lot, and it seems like he really lives up to his reputation, as expected of the school head. He's indeed generous. I wonder if Lingxiao College will be as peaceful as before in the future. All kinds of discussions sounded like a tidal wave. Even though some of them didn't say anything, it was clear that they weren't optimistic about this matter. After all, Lingxiao College wasn't a place where Nan Suhui's family could dominate. Upon hearing those words, Nan Suhui raised his eyebrows and smiled. You don't have to worry about this. He turned around, and even though he was smiling, his gaze was as sharp as a knife as it swept across those who spoke rudely. Everyone fell silent for a moment. However, Nan Suhui's smile widened. Previously, when Lingxiao College was in danger, it was all thanks to you, who risked her life to turn the tide that the entire academy was saved. The verdant jade token had never been given to anyone who wasn't an elder. Today we've made an exception and given it to you, heir and her husband. This was a decision that all of the elders in the academy had agreed to. Why do you seem to be unhappy when our people don't have any objections? Who are you unhappy for? Why don't you think that anyone will care? Since it's a decision made by a person, it's not up to outsiders like you to comment on it. Even though Nan Suhui didn't say those words out loud, his expression conveyed his thoughts very vividly. Many people felt embarrassed and they quickly averted their gazes. However, Nan Suhui didn't seem to be satisfied yet. One more thing, I'd like to remind you all that I, Nan Suhui, have only accepted one disciple in my entire life. Everyone suddenly thought of something and looked at Nan Suhui in disbelief. What was the meaning of this? Is he planning to pass the position of dean to Shangguanyu? Yes. If he didn't have this intention, why would he be so protective of Shangguanyu and even give them such a big gift? Furthermore, the other elders of Lingxiao College were all in favor of the green jade token. Could it be that they had already decided? Many people began to feel uneasy. If Shangguanyu really became the dean of Lingxiao College, the situation would be very different. Even if she didn't have any roots in the Divine Ruins world, Lingxiao College was an absolute colossus. If she really became the principal, then her position in the entire Divine Ruins world would be greatly improved. Admittedly, some of the first-rate families were rich in resources and had many experts. They could cultivate outstanding juniors on their own. They didn't need to send their children to the Yuntian Tower, and they didn't need to worry about their relationship with the Yuntian Tower. However, this was only a small portion of the families. Most of the families and clans still hoped that their juniors could enter Lingxiao College to cultivate and become experts. Then, didn't this mean that they would have to treat Shangguanyu with respect in the future? Many people had complicated expressions on their faces when they realized this. In fact, many of them didn't think highly of Shangguanyu in the past. Even if she was talented and powerful, she was too weak without the support of her family. It was as if she would fall if the wind blew. But now, in front of them was the Yuntian Tower and behind them was the Lingxiao College. With these two forces joining forces, how could the others compete? The atmosphere in the main hall became strange. Many of those who were tempted to make a move had stopped thinking about it. Nan Su Huai revealed a satisfied expression. This was the effect he wanted. They wanted to bully you, Dream on. Both of you have given us such a big gift. Our gift is a little inferior. Shangguanyu said with a smile. Although he said that, his expression was magnanimous and natural, which made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. His temperament alone was better than many of the so-called nobles in the hall. Rong Xiu said with a smile. Father-in-law is the person closest to you. For you to travel such a long distance to come here, this is already the best gift for us. The word father-in-law was addressed to two people, Shangguanyu and Chuning. Some of the people in the hall began to ponder. Just by looking at Rong Xiu's attitude towards the two of them, one could tell that he valued you a lot. It was said that he had even invited the princess's friends and subordinates. It was rare to see someone so thoughtful. Shangguanyu took out a wooden box. The wooden box was rectangular and black. There was a faint pressure coming from it. It was obvious that there was a Xian formation seal on the outside. Chu Liwei felt a familiar wave of energy and widened his eyes in surprise. Father, this is... Open it and take a look. Shangguanyu urged with a smile. Chu Liwei took the wooden box. The moment he held it in his hand, the seal on it was automatically removed. The energy inside it surged even more fiercely. Chu Liwei paused for a moment. The wooden box was opened. A dragon-headed scepter lay quietly inside. Chu Liu's heart skipped a beat. As expected, it was the Tianling scepter. Before I came here, the Tianling scepter flew out of the Longkuan Palace. I brought it with me. Shangguanyu explained. It belongs to you after all. Chu Liwei suppressed the excitement in his heart and reached out to hold the Tianling scepter. Buzz. In an instant, the eyes of the dragon head on the scepter shone brightly. Almost instinctively, Chu Liwei held her scepter and swung it down. Shua. The sound of air being torn apart sounded. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura descended upon the entire ethereal hall. A supremacy artifact. Everyone was once again thrown into disarray. Why was it a supremacy artifact? Could it be that the people of the Shangguan clan were all giving such gifts? Shangguan Jing laughed heartily. This little thing still likes to stick to you. Chu Liwei could also sense that the energy coming from the Tianling scepter seemed to be stronger than before. She had never noticed that it was a supremacy artifact before. As if seeing through her thoughts, Shangguan Jing explained. This Tianling scepter is indeed a supremacy artifact that I forged a long time ago, but it's a little different from ordinary supremacy artifacts. The stronger the wielder is, the stronger the power it can unleash. In the past, your cultivation wasn't high enough, so the power you could sense and wield was limited. However, now that your cultivation has increased significantly, it's only natural that the power it wields is different. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1808. Chu Liwei was amazed when she heard this. No wonder. She had already seen the venerable artifact, but she didn't know about it. Someone suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed. The person beside him immediately frowned. Princess, we came here today to congratulate you. Isn't it inappropriate for you to target us like this? That person was unable to withstand the might of the heaven's writ scepter, and his qi and blood surged, causing him to spit out blood. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows in surprise. I just took out the Tianling scepter and he couldn't take it? I thought that those present today were all the top experts of the Divine Ruins world. So it turns out that I misunderstood? I'm sorry. As she spoke, she immediately took out a jade bottle and asked Yanqing to pass it to her. This is the rejuvenation pill. Please take it. Yanqing respectfully took the pill with both hands and handed it over. This time, not only did the person vomit blood, but even the person who spoke almost couldn't catch his breath. You're sorry? How are you sorry? That move just now was clearly intentional. Just as that person was about to say something, Xiu put down the wine cup in his hand. Clang. The sound was neither loud nor soft, but it suddenly felt like a huge rock pressing down on everyone's hearts. Xiu looked up slightly and glanced over. His eyes were extremely calm. Today is I and yours big day. We can't see blood. Yanqing sent him out. Yes. Yanqing looked at the person who vomited blood. Please. Being stared at by Yanqing, the man subconsciously trembled. At that moment he couldn't say a single word. He forcefully swallowed the blood in his mouth, got up and left dejectedly. When he left, his footsteps were unsteady as if he hadn't recovered yet. Everyone was silent for a moment. This couple really had a tacit understanding. They thought that after listening to what they said, they wouldn't really make a scene here today. Who would have known that Shangguanyu would seek revenge for the smallest grievance? He had openly attacked her in front of so many people. But Xiu just let it be. It could only be said that the person who was beaten up was really unlucky. However, this act of killing the chicken to warn the monkey also caused everyone present to become vigilant. These two. He was not someone to be trifled with. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows. Only then did he put away the heaven-writ scepter, and his lips curled into an extremely faint arc. It's not bad. Time is short. Father doesn't have anything good to give you. A few days ago I asked Senior Shangguan to help me refine a pendant. I'll give it to you. Chu Ning broke the silence in the hall and handed over a palm-sized jade box. This jade box was carried by Chu Ning himself. Back in Yaochen, this jade box was considered excellent. However, in the eyes of these people today it was extremely ordinary. In fact, it could even be said to be somewhat crude. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, a normal one. This was the grade that they should give out. Chu Luiwei didn't care about this. He took the jade box with both hands and opened it. A small green jade gourd was strung together with a red string. There was a faint trace of red inside the jade gourd. He picked up the small jade gourd. Countless gazes fell on it. Someone couldn't help but chuckle. What is this? It was fine if the jade box's material was inferior. After all, it was just a container to hold gifts. But this jade gourd, its quality wasn't very good either. Looking at the color, it was a bit mottled. It was really ugly to the extreme. How could such a thing be given out? Didn't Shangguanyu feel embarrassed? Chu Liuyue's expression was slightly serious. He stared at the jade gourd for a long time before asking, Father, what's inside? That's Chu Ning's blood. Shangguan Jing suddenly spoke. Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Blood. So that Chu Ning asked Shangguan Jing for help and put his blood in that jade gourd. That's too old-fashioned. What's the point? Oh my God, even if he doesn't have anything to give, he shouldn't be so poor, right? Giving his own blood. What is this? That's right. Even if he borrowed a gift, it would be better than this, right? If I were Shangguanyu, I really wouldn't be able to accept this thing. Sounds of discussion gradually rose in the main hall. Chu Ning's hand tightened. This was indeed the best gift that he could give Su Yang. Shangguan Jing glanced around and suddenly laughed. I didn't know when the god's blood of the indestructible divine body became so worthless. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall suddenly became dead silent. Some people still had disdainful smiles on their faces, but their eyes were filled with shock. It looked very strange and funny. There were also people who quickly looked at Chu Ning. Indestructible divine body. Chu Ning has the indestructible divine body. That's one of the rarest divine bodies in the world. He's only a stage 4 warrior. How could... No, that's not right. Rumor has it that when he came to the Yuntian Tower half a month ago, he was only a stage 1 warrior. In such a short period of time, he actually broke through 3 stages in a row. The indestructible divine body has an extremely strong vitality. As long as there's a breath left, it can quickly recover and have a higher combat power. Chu Ning refined the god's blood and merged it into the jade gourd. Wear it and you can contact him at any time. If you encounter any trouble, just call him directly. If it's really dangerous, break the jade gourd and the god's blood will help you recover. Although it could only be used once, it was equivalent to having half an extra life. Chu Ning's current realm is not high, and the power of the god's blood is also relatively thin. During this period of time, in order to refine this drop of blood, he suffered a lot. Chu Ning quickly shook his head. No, Senior Shangguan is exaggerating. Daddy doesn't have anything to give you. I just hope that you will be safe. Chu Liuyue's nose twitched but his lips bloomed into a smile. Thank you, Daddy. He didn't have any rare treasures, only love and passion. He didn't hesitate to give it to her. He was so lucky. Daddy, your gift is no worse than anyone else's. Everyone was silent. Needless to say, the indestructible divine body's God's blood. They didn't even think about it. Shangguan Yu directly had it. Who didn't want to have half an extra life? Even a seemingly lowly existence like Chu Ning could actually give away such a heaven-defying treasure. What kind of luck did Shangguan Yu have? At this moment an announcement came from outside. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix Clan's clan leader, Yizhao, has arrived. Everyone turned around in shock. Yizhao? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix Clan's clan leader? Why is he here? Under everyone's gaze, a tall and sturdy figure appeared outside the door. The moment he appeared, a powerful and vast aura was emitted from his body. It was so oppressive that everyone couldn't breathe. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. Yizhao, to them he was also a legendary figure. Someone muttered in a low voice. Yizhao actually came. Is he here to cause trouble for Shangguan Yu? Digression. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1809. I've long heard that Shangguan Yu contracted a crimson gold sky phoenix and was invited to Phoenix God Mountain some time ago. Later on, I don't know how he came out. Yizhao appearing now, could it really be because of that matter? It's most likely. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is so noble and arrogant. Yizhao has never interacted with the human race. Today he's here personally, so it's definitely not simple. If the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan really wants to make a move on Shangguan Yu, the Yuntian Tower won't be able to stop them, right? Not to mention the Yuntian Tower, none of the families present could be compared to the ancient Divine Beast clan's combat power. Many people in the hall stood up at the same time. Clan leader Yizhao, nice to meet you. We've heard a lot about you. I didn't expect to meet you today. Clan leader Yizhao. Many of the people who still had some pride on their faces just now changed into eager and courteous smiles one after another. It was not difficult to hear the flattery in their words. Even though doing this would make him change too quickly and it would seem a little awkward, but who wasn't like this? Please. The person in front of them was the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. He was the world's top expert who could reject a venerable god expert without hesitation. Who here could be compared to him? Usually, many people wanted to establish a relationship with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, but unfortunately they didn't have the connections. Now Yizhao was in front of them. How could they not seize the opportunity? This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Everyone had a strong desire to be strong. If they could establish a relationship with Yizhao, so what if others said that they were flattering, solicitous, and trying to curry favor with him? However, Yizhao completely ignored these people's greetings. His expression was cold and solemn as he strode forward. His pace was very hurried and cold wind was wrapped around him as he walked. Wherever he passed, his aura crushed. Many people felt a little embarrassed when they were ignored. But this kind of embarrassment was quickly dispelled by themselves. Wasn't Yizhao always like this? If he could greet anyone with a smile, that would be a miracle. This person is indeed the same as the rumors say, cold-faced and cold-hearted. Not only that. I heard that he's super strong and ruthless. All these years, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is almost his sole say. Not to mention us, even their own clan members don't dare to disobey him. Do you guys smell it? That murderous and cold aura on his body. He hadn't even made a move yet, but the overflowing pressure was already so terrifying. If he really wants to make a move, I'm afraid no one here. Sky Phoenix Sky Phoenix Crimson Clan is Yizhao use it. Yizhao, Yi's clan. Under the gazes of everyone, Yizhao walked into the hall. Rongxiu stood up first with a smile on his lips. Clan leader Yizhao, long time no see. How have you been? Everyone was stunned. Rongxiu actually knows Yizhao? And judging from his tone, it seems like they have a good relationship? Could it be that he's pretending? Rongxiu was powerful and famous in the Yuntian Tower, but they had never heard of him having any contact with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Just as everyone was guessing, Yizhao nodded and said indifferently, That's right. Everything is as usual. Many people looked at each other secretly. Does he really know Yi Xiaoyu? Yi Xiao turned and looked at Chu Liyue. Shengguan Yu. His voice was low and cold. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. It's coming. It's about to start. This time, even if the Yuntian Tower and Lingxiao College joined forces, they wouldn't be able to protect her. Congratulations to the two of you on your wedding. I received the news a little late, so I came a little late. Am I late? Yi Xiao asked. Almost everyone's expression froze at this moment. What did Yi Xiao say? Not only did he not reprimand Shangguan Yu, he even congratulated them on their wedding. The air in the hall seemed to have stopped flowing. All the noise suddenly disappeared, leaving only a suffocating silence. Chu Liyue stood up and her eyes curved. How can this be? You came at the right time. Why didn't I hear that you were coming? We didn't make any preparations. Sorry for the delay. Rongxiu had already ordered someone to prepare a seat for him. His seat was naturally the innermost, closest to the two of them. Of course, he was the VIP of the VIPs. Even if he sat at the top, no one would have any objections. While everyone was still in a daze, they saw a little girl suddenly appear in front of Chu Liyue. The little girl looked to be no more than 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a reddish-gold lotus leaf dress, and her hair was tied up in 2 round buns with golden bells. Her small face was fair and cute, and people couldn't help but reach out and pinch it. Chu Liyue gave her a gentle push from behind. Dumpling, go and greet Yi Xiao. Tuanzi was also very surprised. She rushed over with her chubby feet bare. Grandpa clan leader. Her laughter was as clear as silver bells, and Yi Xiao's heart melted. He almost instinctively bent down, stretched out his arms and caught Dumpling firmly. Then he lifted her up. She was soft and small in his arms, and there was still a faint milky fragrance on her body. Her smile was bright and her grape-like big eyes were sparkling. A doting smile finally appeared on Yi Xiao's face that had always been cold and solemn. Dumpling, did you miss Grandpa clan leader? Dumpling nodded vigorously. Yes, of course. Why didn't Grandpa clan leader say that he was coming? Before Yi Xiao could say anything, a smiling voice came from outside the door. Of course, it's to give you a surprise. At the same time, a figure floated in. Tuanzi raised her head and looked over. Then she smiled even more happily. Grandpa Yu. Everyone present felt as if they were struck by lightning. One of the 5 great elders of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, Yi Xiao wasn't enough, and now Yi was here too? What was he doing? Yi walked over with a smile and directly reached out to pinch Dumpling's perky nose. Dumpling, did you miss Grandpa Yi? Yes. Dumpling giggled. Elder Yi was satisfied. Yi Xiao glanced at him coldly. Elder Yi was fearless. Dumpling, you don't know, but Grandpa clan leader misses you so much that he abandoned me on the road just now. Hehe. Yi Xiao's eyebrows twitched. It seemed that some people were really ungrateful. You're too useless. Their footsteps were so slow and the wedding ceremony was about to end. Elder Yi coughed and touched his nose. It had been a long time since he was criticized like this. But who asked the other party to be the clan leader? Could he beat him? Oh, he couldn't. He could only endure it. So Grandpa clan leader misses me that much. Dumpling came to a realization. Then she grabbed Yi Xiao's beard and leaned over to kiss his face. Dumpling also misses Grandpa clan leader a lot. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1810. Yi Xiao's body stiffened. He was so agitated that his hands were trembling. What had he not seen in his life? Even in the face of death, his heart wouldn't beat so quickly. But this feeling was wonderful. He felt as though his entire body was soaked in a hot spring. It was warm, comfortable, and smooth. In short, there was only one word to describe it. Comfortable. At this moment, he even felt that even if Dumpling wanted the stars in the sky, he would find a way to pluck them and give them to her. As long as she was happy. Elder Yi was petrified as he watched from the side. He seemed to have assisted her. He was jealous. But at this moment, the crowd in the hall wasn't just jealous. They were about to go crazy. Everything that had happened in such a short period of time contained too much information. What did that little girl called Dumpling call Yi Xiao? Grandpa clan chief? Didn't that mean that she was the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix that had contracted with Shangguan Yu? No, what happened to the agreement that she was here to cause trouble? What happened to the agreement that the bloodline of the ancient divine beasts wasn't to be sullied? What happened to the agreement that the crimson gold sky phoenix wouldn't interact with humans and draw a clear line between them? What was going on now? That little girl was clearly contracted with Shangguanyu. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suddenly appeared beside Shangguanyu. Didn't Yi Zhao care about that? And he was so affectionate toward her. Furthermore, didn't crimson gold sky phoenixes have to wait until they reached adulthood to take on a human form? That little girl clearly looked very young. Someone braced himself and asked. May I ask? Clan Chief Yi Zhao, This time Yi Zhao finally turned his head and shot him a glance. I forgot to introduce her. This is Dumpling, the young master of our crimson gold sky phoenix clan. Dead silence. That short sentence was no different from a bolt of lightning that struck the ethereal hall. Everyone was stunned. Their expressions were fascinating. Young master. That little girl was the young master of the crimson gold sky phoenix clan. No, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the young master of the crimson gold sky phoenix clan was Shangguanyu's contracted mythological beast. What did this mean? No one knew what this meant. Because such a thing had never happened before. Just a moment ago they were still thinking that Shangguanyu might be targeted by Yi Zhao because of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. In the next second Yi Zhao dropped such a bombshell. How could anyone accept this? No, how could there be such a person? It's one thing for you to form a contract with a divine beast, but it's an ancient divine beast. Putting aside the fact that he was an ancient divine beast, he was actually a young master? Normal people wouldn't even dare to dream like that. Chu Luyue said with a smile. Patriarch Yi Zhao, Elder Yu, please take a seat. Then she looked at the people in the hall, and her smile became even more amiable and brilliant. Why are you all in a daze? Take a seat. Today is the wedding day of Her Highness and I. We are very grateful that all of you took the trouble to come here. Everyone, please feel free to treat this place as your own home. Who's your own home? We don't have such a relationship with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. For a moment, countless people were complaining in their hearts. However, Yi Zhao and Yi Yu were here, so they didn't dare to say a single word. It wasn't until Yi Zhao sat down with Dumpling that everyone sat down again one after another. His seat wasn't stable at all. There was only one thought left in most people's minds now. Offending Shangguanyu was equivalent to offending Dumpling. Offending Dumpling was equivalent to offending the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. If they were blind and killed Shangguanyu, it would be equivalent to killing the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. According to Yi Zhao's character, it wouldn't be enough to wipe out the entire clan 10 times. What the heck? Shangguanyu has such a background? Why didn't I hear anything about it before? That's right. Everyone thought that she offended the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Who knew that she had contracted their young master? This is really something. Who can afford to offend such a powerful backer? But why would Yi Zhao agree to this? This doesn't make sense. You want to know? Go and ask him yourself. Anyway, I don't want to know. What's the use of knowing? Let's think about whether we offended that person just now. Who the hell told me that Shangguanyu is of a lowly background and has no one to rely on? I'll kill him when I get back. If that's called not having a backer, then let's not live anymore. Yi Zhao's appearance and declaration of his position caused everyone's attitude to take a 180-degree turn. It couldn't be helped. A strong fist was the highest truth. At this moment, no one cared about why Yi Zhao was so open-minded about contracting Dumpling with Shangguanyu. He had already said that he was their young master and even came to support them. Wasn't that enough? Dumpling nestled in Yi Zhao's arms, beaming with joy. Seeing that she was fine, Yi Zhao and Yi Yu were also relieved. In fact, a large part of the reason why they decided to come this time was because Dumpling said that they had gone to Divine Dragon Island. Even though Dumpling said that she was fine, they were still worried. After thinking about it, they still came. In addition, this way Shangguanyu and Dumpling would have less trouble traveling in the Divine Ruins world in the future. Killing several birds with one stone, why not? Yi Zhao said, "Oh right. By the way, our Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix clan has also brought a small gift for your wedding." As he spoke, he nodded at Elder Yu beside him. Elder Yu stepped forward with a smile and handed over a jade bottle. This is the spring water condensed in the frost cave on Godly Phoenix Mountain. It's only produced once every 100 years, and it's extremely beneficial for cultivation. This is a small gift to show our respect. A trace of shock flashed across Chu Liuyue's eyes. She knew about this item. Back then, that god-level expert had gone to Godly Phoenix Mountain to ask for this item. And at that time he had only asked for a few drops. In the end, he hadn't even been able to enter Godly Phoenix Mountain, let alone obtain the spring water from the Frost Cave. She didn't expect that not only did Yi Zhao and the others come personally, but they also brought such a generous gift. Chu Liyue received it with both hands and thanked them solemnly. Everyone in the main hall revealed looks of envy. Some people were so lucky that they couldn't understand it. After today's event, even if they wanted to do anything in the future, they would have to think twice. Suddenly, another low and heroic laughter sounded out from afar. "Ah, it's so lively here. Is this old man late?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1811. Someone else is coming. When everyone heard this voice, they all looked outside the door. Why does this wedding ceremony seem to be getting more and more lively? It's already so late. Who could it be? I know. In the world of divine ruins, basically everyone who has dealings with the Yuntian Tower is here, right? Many people were filled with guesses. Soon that figure came from the horizon and appeared in front of the main hall. His speed was so fast that the person in charge of passing on the message outside didn't even have time to make a sound. The main hall fell silent. Everyone's gaze fell on the person who came. It was a man who looked to be in his 40s. He was tall and sturdy and his face was angular. At this moment he was walking inside with a warm smile on his face. Who is this? I don't know, but looking at his imposing manner, he doesn't seem to be an ordinary person. When did such a person appear in the world of divine ruins? Yi Zhao sat up straight and stared at the person who came. Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue stood up at the same time. Rong Xiu smiled. Senior Mao Zhen, you're finally here. When the name Mao Zhen was shouted out, everyone was stunned. After a moment, someone seemed to have thought of something and suddenly gasped. Mao Zhen? Could it be? Mao Zhen laughed. You also know that there have been too many things happening on the Divine Dragon Island recently, so I'm a little late. But don't worry, this old man didn't forget to bring this wedding gift. His voice was full of energy and it echoed clearly in the entire main hall, falling into everyone's ears. When they heard Divine Dragon Island, almost everyone's expression changed. Wasn't that the Great Phoenix Dragon's territory? Then they remembered that Rong Xiu had called him Senior Mao Zhen. Isn't that the Great Phoenix Dragon's genius from 1,000 years ago? Mao Zhen. Mao Zhen. How could it be him? Rumor has it that he's not crazy. That person didn't dare to say the rest of the words. Because Mao Zhen had already heard the words and looked over. He still had a smile on his face, but when his gaze swept over, it carried a powerful pressure that made one's heart tremble. It seems that everyone is not very well informed. Mao Zhen looked around and raised his eyebrows. Since everyone is here today, there are some things that I would like to tell you about. I'm Mao Zhen and I'm also the new Great Phoenix Dragon's Patriarch. In the future when you meet again, please don't mistake me for someone else. Patriarch? Someone couldn't help but ask. Isn't the Patriarch of the Great Phoenix Dragon's Patriarch? Mao Zhen casually waved his hand and said with a faint smile. Mao Zhen? He killed and framed his own kind. He is a sinner of the Great Void Phoenix Dragon race. Now he had been stripped of his dragon's scales and imprisoned. What? Do you want to meet him? The person who asked the question instantly turned pale. No. I was just casually asking. The other people's reactions were not much better than this person's. It was like a sudden clap of thunder. Mao Zhen, who was rumored to have died a long time ago, suddenly appeared and immediately became the clan leader. On the other hand, Mao Yang, who had been the clan leader for hundreds of years, became a sinner overnight and was even sentenced to death? In fact, they couldn't be blamed for not being informed. It was really too difficult to find out about the Great Phoenix Dragon's Patriarch. The Divine Dragon Island's geographical location was special. Ordinary people didn't know where it was. In addition, the Great Phoenix Dragon's Patriarch had always been arrogant. Without some means, the human race wouldn't know anything. Most importantly, Mao Zhen was indeed busy cleaning up the Patriarch's patriarch and deliberately blocked the news. Outsiders had no way of knowing. However, since he had shown up today, he naturally had to make things clear. As he spoke, he retracted his gaze and waved his sleeve. A purple gold flowing light flew out. Rongxiu raised his hand. The purple gold flowing light landed in his palm and turned into a palm-sized dragon scale. However, these dragon scales were different from ordinary dragon scales. There was a totem drawn on the surface of the scales with bright lines. Rongxiu's eyes flickered. Chu Luiwei also sensed the astonishing aura on the dragon scale and couldn't help but widen her eyes slightly. Senior Maozhen, this is... this old man didn't think of what to give you previously. After all, there are many treasures in the Yuntian Tower. After thinking about it, this old man decided to give this red heart dragon scale to you. In the future, with this item, you will be my Divine Dragon Island's distinguished guests. You can come and go as you wish. If there is any danger, use this dragon scale as a signal. My great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch will spare no effort to help. At this point, he paused and looked at Chu Luiwei with admiration. This girl is really very beautiful. Rongxiu, you are very lucky. Rongxiu's smile deepened. The corners of his eyes and brows seemed to relax a little. Yes. It was indeed his greatest fortune to be able to marry her. Maozhen's deep and powerful voice knocked heavily on everyone's heart. Some people were already in a daze. This is... Even the great Phoenix Dragon's patriarch came to support Shangguanyu? When did they know each other? They seemed to be very close. If not for their strong friendship, why would Maozhen have such an attitude? Not only did he come to congratulate them personally, but he also gave them the red heart dragon scale. Thank you, Senior Maozhen. Please take a seat. Chu Luiwei said with a smile. Maozhen's seat was arranged long ago. When he sat down, he happened to sit right across from Yi Zhao. The two patriarchs of the primordial divine beasts looked at each other. In an instant, there seemed to be sparks flying everywhere. At this moment, everyone in the hall clearly felt that the air seemed to have frozen. Who didn't know that the relationship between the great Phoenix Dragon and the red gold heavenly phoenix had always been rather subtle? The two sides never casually stepped into each other's territory. There was a clear boundary between them. However, they had always been competing with each other in the open and in the dark. Now that Yi Zhao and Maozhen met each other, there was a sense of tension. These two wouldn't fight on the spot, right? Just as everyone's hearts were filled with worry, Maozhen was the first to laugh. Brother Yi Zhao, how have you been? His laugh broke the deadlock. Yi Zhao's face was expressionless as usual. I haven't congratulated Brother Maozhen on clearing your grievances and returning to the peak. Maozhen glanced at Tuanzi and sighed with emotion. With Dumpling, Brother Yi Zhao is really enviable. These words made Yi Zhao very happy. It was useless to praise him, but as long as he praised Dumpling, his attitude would be much gentler. Not at all. I have to thank Brother Maozhen for taking care of her previously. Maozhen laughed. How is it me taking care of her? Dumpling has always been with her Ayu. She has always been taking care of Dumpling. Hearing this, Yi Zhao's eyes were a little moved. He looked at Chu Luiwei and nodded gently. Thank you. Chu Luiwei hurriedly refused and smiled. You're too polite. I promised you to take good care of Dumpling. This is what I should do. The atmosphere on their side gradually became harmonious, leaving only the people in the hall with confused expressions. Why are they still reminiscing about the past? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1812. This scene was too stimulating. Before they could even enter the Divine Phoenix Mountain, Xianxia had already contracted the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Before they even knew that the clan leader of the Divine Dragon Island had changed, Xianxia was already chatting happily with the new clan leader. What was even stranger was that these two clans could actually sit in the same room and chat so peacefully. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they were giving face to Rongxiu and Xianxia. First Yi Zhao came, which was already unbearable. Now Maozhen came too. This was simply too much. No backing, no background. Then what the F***ck is going on? Some people were already going crazy. I was just mocking Xianxia. She must have heard everything. Regret. Really regret. Many people in the hall had ugly expressions on their faces. They were restless in their seats and wanted nothing more than to run away. This place. Staying for even a second longer was torture. Chu Luiwei calmly raised her wine cup, which was filled with the tea that Rongxiu had just changed. Her thick and long eyelashes drooped slightly, hiding the surging waves in her eyes. Actually, how could there be so many rumors spreading? How could there be so many emotions being stirred up? It was simply because they themselves thought that way. These people from the aristocratic clans had been in their positions for a long time. All they could see was the small piece of land in front of them. And their views were often prejudiced. Just because she was born outside the divine ruins world, they looked down on her. No matter how outstanding she was, it still couldn't offset the obsession in the depths of their hearts. At this time, persuasion was useless. The most effective way was to give them a few slaps to wake them up. That's right. She indeed didn't have her own power in the divine ruins world. But this didn't mean that she was easy to bully. Whether it was the Yuntian Tower, Lingxiao College, or the two ancient divine beast clans, they would all become her backing. From today onwards, she would let these people understand that she was not someone who would be bullied and humiliated. The banquet continued. However, for many of the people present, they had already lost their appetite. He had come here today to watch a joke, but who knew that his face would be slapped swollen in the end? However, he had to endure this slap. Whether it was the crimson gold heavenly phoenix or the great phoenix dragon, they were not people they could afford to offend. Thus, those who were happy became happier and those who were depressed became even more depressed. Rong Xiao and Chu Liwei didn't care about this. In any case, he had already achieved his goal. Nothing else mattered. If you truly came to congratulate them, they would welcome you with open arms. If you came here with other intentions, then you can't blame me. Suddenly, a figure rushed into the main hall. Your Highness, Princess Consort, there are two guests. Rong Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. Those who were supposed to come today were already here. Who else would appear? Furthermore, from the looks of it, the other party's identity was somewhat unusual. Who are you? Rong Xiao asked faintly. That person hurriedly said. They said, they are from the Nan family. As these words fell, many people subconsciously stopped what they were doing, looking surprised and doubtful. The Nan family? That Nan family? Rong Xiao's expression became a little colder. Chu Liwei raised his eyebrows slightly, put down the wine glass and raised the corner of his lips into an ambiguous smile. It seemed that they hadn't stopped yet. Hadn't they suffered enough from before? Rong Xiao leaned back, his eyes cold. Drive them out. Digression. 11:30 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 18:13. That person hesitated for a moment before speaking. Your Highness, the two of them said that they're here to deliver a congratulatory gift after hearing that you're celebrating a joyous occasion today. Rong Xiao glanced at him indifferently. The silent pressure caused that person's heart to tremble, and he swallowed the rest of his words. Yes. After saying those words, that person quickly left. Many people in the ethereal hall glanced at one another. The Nan clan. Why are they here? If I recall correctly, the Yuntian Tower doesn't have much interaction with them, right? Why are they here all of a sudden? However, it seems like the Yuntian Tower doesn't welcome them. The Nan clan has always been arrogant, so what's the meaning of this? And the Yuntian Tower doesn't seem to care about them at all. The Yuntian Tower has the crimson gold celestial phoenix and the great illusionary dragon as their backing now. Who else can possibly catch their eye? You're right. In the world of God, there were many sects and clans, and the various powers were entangled with one another. It was common for the weak to rely on the strong. Without a doubt, the two primordial divine beast clans were the two thickest thighs in the world. And now they were being embraced by the Shangguanyu alone. What else was there to say? This small interlude was quickly forgotten by everyone. Outside the barrier of the Yuntian Tower, Luo Yan's face was cold. Nan Yi stood behind him and shook his arm with an aggrieved expression. She really wanted to go in. Luo Yan turned around and patted her hand comfortingly. Then he looked at the guard in charge of guarding the barrier. We're really here to congratulate you. The black-armored guard looked at Luo Yan coldly. His Highness' intentions are clear. The Yuntian Tower doesn't welcome you. Please leave quickly. If you continue to pester us, don't blame us for being impolite. Luo Yan's chest was burning with rage. He had never suffered such humiliation in all these years. Yet he had been thwarted time and time again by the Rong Xiao and the Shangguanyu. However, this was the other party's territory, and it wouldn't do them any good if a fight broke out. Luo Yan took a deep breath and pulled Nan Yi away. Let's go. Nan Yi wanted to struggle again, but when she looked up and saw Luo Yan's angry face, she knew that he was really angry. She didn't dare to do anything else and could only follow him obediently. The two figures quickly disappeared. About an hour later, Luo Yan brought Nan Yi to a mountain peak. The forest on the mountain was lush. The sun was shining brightly, casting mottled shadows in the forest. There seemed to be the sound of a stream flowing in his ears. Everything was calm and peaceful. However, Nan Yi's mood wasn't soothed by this scenery. Along the way, she followed behind Luo Yan with her head lowered silently. Luo Yan only stopped when he reached a relatively flat area. As soon as he turned around, Nan Yi looked up and only then did he see the tears on her face. Luo Yan's heart instantly felt as if it had been pricked by something, and his voice softened a lot. I've already said that this method won't work. We've already made such a fuss with them before, so why would they still be in contact with us? Besides, today is their wedding day. If it were him, he would definitely make the same choice. Nan Yi had always been very smart. He didn't know why she was so persistent this time. She knew that there was a wall in front of her, but she still wanted to hit it hard. Nan Yi pursed her lips as tears kept falling. Ever since she couldn't speak, she didn't want to make any sound, including crying. It would only make her feel tormented and painful. Luo Yan patted her shoulder gently and sighed. I know you hate him. But you haven't recovered from your injuries yet. Even if you want to take revenge, you don't have the ability to do so, right? And, for some reason, the family head is obviously very afraid of Wuxia. If we act rashly, I'm afraid that the Nan family will also. Nan Yi turned her head away. She didn't want to care about this. She only knew that her tongue had been cut off and she couldn't speak anymore. No one else could understand her pain, so how could they be in a position to comfort her? Seeing her like this, Luo Yan knew that it was useless to persuade her, so he didn't say anything. He had already brought her here according to her request, but he couldn't do anything more. She still needed to slowly digest this kind of thing herself. Nan Yi suddenly walked towards the middle of the mountain. Luo Yan frowned and immediately followed. Where are you going? Nan Yi didn't stop and just walked forward. Luo Yan wanted to stop her, but seeing that she still seemed to be angry, he knew that the only thing he could do now was to go along with her, so he could only follow her. The two of them walked forward in silence. About a quarter of an hour later, a black shadow suddenly flew past. A dangerous and cold aura was approaching rapidly. Luo Yan knew that something was wrong and immediately pulled Nan Yi back. Sit back. But it was already too late. The black shadow approached quickly and turned into a black fog that swallowed Nan Yi. Luo Yan was shocked and immediately mobilized the force in his body to take action. However, at this moment he was shocked to discover that his body seemed to be fixed by something and he couldn't move. Then the black fog quickly spread over and strangled Luo Yan's neck. It was like a venomous snake slowly crawling around his neck, cold and sinister. Luo Yan desperately mobilized the force in his body, but he was still helpless. One had to know that he was a venerable god expert, and ordinary cultivators were no match for him. Even if a venerable god of the same level fought against him, it was impossible for him to be crushed like this. Just as countless thoughts flashed through Luo Yan's mind, the black fog had already started to spread around him and swallow him bit by bit. Perhaps because he was much stronger than Nan Yi, the speed at which the black fog swallowed him was obviously much slower. But this couldn't go on. If he couldn't think of a way to escape, he was afraid that, boom, a powerful force suddenly erupted from Luo Yan's body. The violent force spread out in all directions, causing the black fog to disperse. Luo Yan was finally able to catch his breath. He immediately turned around and fled without hesitation. He used the fastest speed in his life. However, the black fog wasn't slow either. Before he could run far, Luo Yan felt a strong force pulling his ankle. He looked down and his heart skipped a beat. The black fog had already wrapped around him again. This time, the power contained in the black fog seemed to have become stronger, causing Luo Yan's speed to become slower and slower. A strong sense of fear struck him. Luo Yan suddenly turned around. The black fog was like a monster that opened its bloody mouth and swallowed him. A strange blood-colored totem suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. Then Luo Yan's vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1814. The figures of Nan Yi and Luo Yan both disappeared into the forest. As for the dense and strange black mist, It gradually dissipated and vanished without a trace after swallowing the two of them. The forest was quiet. A breeze blew, blowing the mottled shadows of the trees. The stream gurgled and the ornaments jingled. Everything had returned to how it was in the beginning. As if nothing had happened. A black swamp spread out endlessly. There were grayish-white reeds swaying in the wind. At a glance, the world was boundless. Nan Yifan stood at the edge of the swamp. If he walked any further, he would step into this dark and terrifying swamp. A cold and gloomy aura came from all directions, including him. There was also a faint smell of blood mixed with the smell of something rotten, which was nauseating. Nan Yifan frowned, suppressing the churning between his chest and abdomen. If it weren't for Yuxing, he wouldn't have come to this place. But now there was no other way. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. He cupped his fists, his attitude respectful and polite. A cool breeze blew and the reeds fluttered. But there was no response. Nan Yifan continued. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. There was silence all around. Nan Yifan hesitated for a moment, then lifted his clothes and knelt on the ground. The head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan, requests an audience with the sect master. In this empty world that seemed to have been abandoned by the world, Nan Yifan's voice sounded particularly lonely and helpless. But he seemed to have expected this situation. He just gritted his teeth and begged again and again. From day to night. From night to day. He knelt at the edge of the swamp and begged for a day and a night. When his voice became hoarse and he was almost unable to speak, the reeds in front of him finally began to sway violently. Pieces of white floss flew up and fell into the black swamp, and were quickly swallowed by the surging mud. Vaguely white bones could be seen. Nan Yifan pretended not to see it. He just raised his head and stared straight ahead with bloodshot eyes. The surroundings seemed to have become quieter. Nan Yifan's heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something, and the blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. His throat was burning with pain, his body was stiff, and his mind was blank. But at this moment he couldn't care less about that. Finally, a low and hoarse voice sounded. Nan Yifan? What are you doing here? Nan Yifan's pupils shrank. Even though the other party did not reveal himself, just hearing this voice was enough to make him excited. He said at once, "Sect leader, please save my son's life." That voice seemed to laugh. Nanyu Xing's yuan meridian has been severed and he is now a cripple. Even if he forcefully recovers his yuan meridian, he will only be able to recover 30% of his original talent. You don't have to spend so much effort. Nan Yifan instantly felt like he had fallen into an ice cave. How can it only recover 30%? Lord Sect Leader's divine abilities. If it was an ordinary person, it wouldn't be a problem. But the key point is, the one who did it this time was Rongxiu. He wanted your son to suffer a fate worse than death, so he used some special means. Even if it was me, it would take a lot of effort to completely deal with him. Nan Yifan's eyes lit up as if he had grasped onto the last straw. Lord Sect Leader still has a way. But before he could continue, the other party continued. But why don't you think about it? Nanyu Xing is worthy of me using my full strength. Nan Yifan's heart turned cold. Using my full strength. Not to mention Nanyu Xing, even he was not worthy. But, if that was the case, wouldn't Nanyu Xing be finished? Nanyu Xing was bent on seeking death. Even if he recovered 30% of his talent, he would not be able to accept it. How could a prideful person like him accept becoming a cripple? He could not even accept becoming an ordinary person. These two situations were equally painful for people like him. So, it still doesn't work. Nan Yifan's expression was dejected and defeated. He had already abandoned all his dignity and pride to come here and ask for help. But it still didn't work. When he thought of the scene of Nanyu Xing begging him to help, his heart couldn't help but tremble. In this world there was probably no parent who could accept this. Rongxiu, even I won't easily make a move against him. Your good son and daughter are very bold. How dare they provoke him again and again? They are really courting death. There was a hint of mockery in the voice. They can only blame themselves for this. Nan Yifan's face was pale and his cracked lips trembled violently. Of course he knew all this. But, how could he have thought that Nanyu Xing and Yi would encounter Rongxiu in the god-slaying tomb? Furthermore, for various reasons he had even gotten into a fight with them. Even though he had tried his best to make up for it after he found out about this, it was obviously useless. Is there really no other way? Nan Yifan murmured in despair. Actually, it's not that there is no other way. It just depends on whether you are willing to do it or not. The voice said slowly. Nan Yifan suddenly raised his head. Please give me some pointers, sect leader. The other party seemed to smile again, but he did not directly answer the question. Instead, he changed the topic and asked him a question. If I remember correctly, your daughter's talent seems to be pretty good? Nan Yifan nodded in a daze. Yes. Yi's talent is also very outstanding. Originally, I had high hopes for her, but unfortunately her tongue. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something and his eyes widened. Wait. Sect leader, could it be? This time the other party's laughter sounded very happy. You're very smart. They are related by blood, which is much more convenient. If your daughter's talent is transferred to your son will naturally recover. However, your daughter will become a complete cripple in the future. It's all up to you to decide. You can think about it carefully. These few words were as light as a feather, but they pressed on Nan Yifan's chest like a heavy stone. One was Yu Xing and the other was Yi. Both were his flesh and blood. How could he choose? Nan Yifan knelt there with his hands on the ground. Because of the force, his fingers were pale. I don't have much patience. The voice urged lazily. Finally, Nan Yifan closed his eyes. Change. I have let you down. But your big brother really can't be crippled like this. Nan Yifan's heart was in pain and he was almost numb. The voice suddenly laughed. Forget it, you don't have to do this here. You have invested more energy and hope in Nan Yuxing. If he can't make it, your position as the head of the family will fall into someone else's hands sooner or later. So, you have to save Nan Yuxing. The choice is so simple. What's so difficult for you? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1815. These words were like an extremely sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced through Nan Yifan's last cover. He peeled off his skin and flesh, revealing his bloody insides. His body swayed, but his face turned even paler. However, even he had to admit that the other party was right. All these years on the surface he seemed to dote on Nan Yi more, but in reality he had always placed his hopes of inheriting the heavy responsibility on Nan Yuxing. If Nan Yuxing died, all his hard work over the past few decades would be in vain. So now he finally made this extremely difficult decision. Nan Yifan fell to the ground. All his strength seemed to have been sucked out by someone, and his entire body was shrouded in a layer of despair. You made a wise decision. The other party praised him. Nan Yifan gasped for breath and said weakly, That's right. I want to go back first and talk to Yi. Why go through so much trouble? The other party interrupted him. I know you're a smart person, so I've already brought Nan Yi over. Nan Yifan suddenly looked up. A gust of wind blew past and the reeds swayed. In the depths of the black swamp, a black fog wrapped around a person and flew over. Nan Yifan recognized at a glance that the person inside was his daughter, Nan Yi. Sect Master. After the shock, Nan Yifan couldn't help but feel a strong anger in his heart. Had he already set his sights on Yi? Don't be in a hurry to be angry. Your precious daughter has a lot of thoughts. When I found her, she wasn't in the Nan family, but on a mountain peak not far from the Yuntian Tower. At this time she still thinks that she can rely on her own ability to take revenge. Nan Yifan pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything. This was indeed something that Nan Yi would do. In the past, when she was a little arrogant and willful, he would at most criticize her a little and had never really taken it seriously. It was probably because of this that he raised her to be so naive and even to the point of stupidity. He looked at Nan Yi, who was trapped in the black fog. At this moment her eyes were tightly shut and she seemed to be still unconscious. As if she had sensed something, Nan Yi frowned. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly. He was about to wake up. Do you still want to talk to her? The voice asked. Nan Yifan clenched his fists so tightly that his bones creaked. Finally he let go of his hand. No need. These two words seemed to have used up all of his strength. In the next second the black fog quickly entered Nan Yi's body. In an instant blood splattered everywhere. Nan Yifan's vision turned black and he fainted. Yuntian Tower. That small setback did not attract the attention of the crowd. The appearance of Yi Zhao and Mao Zhen caused a huge change in the atmosphere in the ethereal hall. Most people became a little more reserved. In fact, there were many people here who wanted to take the opportunity to get close to him and establish a relationship with him. After all, they usually didn't even have the chance to meet these two. Now that he had finally encountered one, he naturally did not want to waste this opportunity. However, this matter was easier said than done. There were simply too many people in the ethereal hall. Those who were able to appear here were basically all reputable figures in the Divine Ruins world. They knew very well that at this time whoever stepped forward first would be the most eye-catching. Besides, even if they were willing to go all out and say a few words in front of everyone, they would still be faced with a very serious problem. Yi Zhao and Mao Zhen were sitting opposite each other. Who should they approach first and who should they approach later? Although the atmosphere between the two sides was very harmonious, everyone was smart. They didn't really think that the Great Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix would be as close as a family from now on. If they were to curry favor with one first, they would inevitably offend the other. Both sides were evenly matched and they could not afford to offend either of them. As such, everyone fell into a dilemma. In the end, no one moved. Many people looked at Chu Liyue enviously. They wondered what kind of method she used to establish a good relationship with these two factions at the same time. In a slightly remote corner of the hall, Sun Yi and the others were sitting together. They were also invited to this banquet. Originally, Chu Liyue had planned to arrange for them to sit at the front. After all, there were not many people on her side and Sun Yi and the others had been with her for many years and had gone through life and death with her. In her heart, the 13U tribe was no less important than her family. No, it should be said that she had long regarded them as her family. She wanted to give them the best. However, this suggestion was rejected by Sun Yi. Chu Liyue also asked for the reason and Sun Yi only replied indifferently, "I don't like noise." Chu Liyue understood their personalities and knew that they did not like to be too eye-catching. If they stayed at the back they would probably be more comfortable. After thinking for a moment she agreed. "Sai, when will my dishes be ready?" Shifeng stared at the various delicacies in front of him, but he had no appetite at all. He had a bitter look on his face. Wu Yao and Yu Jiu were eating very happily at the side and did not pay much attention to him. Little Hachi stopped eating after eating a little. Shifeng was very touched. "Sister 8, you also think that my cooking is the best, right?" Little Hachi rested her chin on her hand and said lazily, "No. I'm on a diet." Shifeng was speechless. Sun Yi's expression was as indifferent and distant as usual. He had never cared much about such trivial matters. 13 took a bite of the snack and couldn't help but lean closer. "Big brother, when do you plan to tell Master about that matter?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1816. Sun Yi glanced at him. "Eat your food properly." 13 shrunk his neck and said obediently. "Oh. Looks like Big Brother doesn't intend to say it for the time being. However, Big Brother has always been a strategist, so he definitely has his own plans. It's not my place to worry." 13's gaze landed on the wine glass beside him. Inside there was clear wine that glowed with light. He licked his lips, his eyes filled with curiosity. "Big brother, can I drink?" Sun Yi didn't turn around. No. 13 had expected this outcome, but he still hesitated and struggled. "Then, just one mouthful?" Sun Yi glanced at him. "If you beat me I'll let you drink." 13 was instantly discouraged. Big brother said that every time. In the past he didn't have any experience. Every time he felt that he had improved he would think that he could win and excitedly run to compete with Big Brother. Then he would return in defeat. Without exception. If he wanted to beat Big Brother, God knows how long it would take. Seeing his dejected expression, Shifeng couldn't bear to see him like this. "Big brother, 13 is still a child. It's fine to let him drink just one mouthful. There are so many of us here." Little Hachi's beautiful eyes flickered as she gave Shifeng a thumbs up. A true warrior. Not only did he dare to suggest to Big Brother, but he also dared to suggest letting 13 drink. Shifeng's heart skipped a beat when she looked at him like this. Only then did he recall some tragic past and hurriedly try to salvage the situation. No. What I mean is, if Big Brother thinks it's inappropriate then forget it. Forget it. 13, if you really want to drink, how about I make rice wine for you?" 13 revealed a rare speechless expression. Little Hachi rolled her eyes again. Wu Yao finally stopped eating. Yu Jiu poked him. 13 is confused. Is Shifeng also confused? Could it be that Shifeng had become stupid from farming? How could he say that? Wu Yao swallowed the last mouthful of meat and sighed. This rice is really delicious. Unfortunately, he couldn't eat it today. Shifeng. Sun Yi suddenly spoke. Shifeng shuddered all over. Hey big brother. You are not allowed to eat for a month. Shifeng's face instantly collapsed. No big brother, I really didn't mean that. Just listen casually, don't take it to heart. The vegetables I grew over there will be ready to eat in a few days. After all, he had been starving for a long time. How was he going to survive if this continued for another month? However, Sun Yi did not care whether he lived or died. 13 revealed a guilty expression. 10th brother, I'm sorry. If it weren't for him, brother 10 wouldn't have been punished like this. For a moment 13 felt wronged and guilty. He just wanted to give it a try. Master doesn't like you drinking. Sun Yi suddenly said calmly. 13 was stunned. He raised his head to look at him in surprise. Really? He had never heard his master mention it before. Sun Yi frowned. The last time you accidentally drank wine, master was worried for a few days. Sun Yi's face immediately turned red. Although it had been a few years and he couldn't really remember what had happened at that time, it would be better if he didn't make his master worry. Big brother, I was wrong. 13 lowered his head and obediently admitted his mistake. Sun Yi nodded in satisfaction. This matter was finally over. The rest of them looked at each other. Gay. Little 13 was too pitiful. Master didn't even know that he drank, let alone whether he liked it or not. In terms of scheming, who could be Big Brother's match? Poor Eva. Sun Yi looked up at Chu Luiyue, who was sitting at the head of the table. Digression. This is the last update on the 11th. It will be updated at noon on the 12th. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 1817. She was dressed in a red wedding gown with a phoenix coronet on her head. Her features were as beautiful as a painting and her skin was as fair as jade. All the light in the surroundings seemed to fall on her body. She was magnificent, nothing more than that. Sun Yi smiled and retracted his gaze. The wedding banquet lasted for a very long time. Yi Zhao and Mao Zhen stayed for a while longer before taking their leave. They rarely interacted with humans and it was already a rare occasion that they were willing to pay a visit to Rongxiu and Shangguanyu. Yi Zhao didn't like such a lively scene, but seeing that Dumpling was fine he was relieved. In the end he bade Elder Yu farewell. Mao Zhen was in a better state. After being trapped in the coiling dragon pillar for 1,000 years, he had been very lonely. On top of that he had been busy dealing with the problems that Mao Yang had left behind on Divine Dragon Island. It was rare for him to have some free time, so he decided to stay here for a while longer. It was only in the afternoon that he finally left. After the two of them left, the atmosphere in the ethereal hall finally returned to normal. Many people heaved a sigh of relief, but they couldn't help but feel a little regretful. It was rare for them to meet the two of them, but they didn't even get a chance to speak to them, let alone build a relationship with them. Obviously, they were here to support the two people who were getting married today. Faced with such a situation, what else could they do other than feel envious? Eventually, the crowd bade their farewells one after another, and it was only in the evening that all of the guests finally left. At night there was a grand display of fireworks. Everyone gathered at the square in front of the ethereal hall. In the dark night sky, countless brilliant fireworks bloomed one after another. The entire Yuntian Tower was ablaze with lights, and it was immersed in a lively atmosphere. Chu Luiyue raised her head to look at this scene. Rongxiu turned to look at her. The fireworks illuminated her face, making it seem as clear as jade. It made her eyes seem as if they were filled with a myriad of stars. He held her hand tightly and their fingers intertwined. Yue, what are you thinking about? Chu Luiyue turned to look at him. I'm thinking about you. Her red lips curled into a smile as her eyes curved into crescents. Husband, I'm thinking about you. Rongxiu's heartbeat stopped for a moment. There were no words more touching than this one sentence from her. A moment later his eyes flashed and he moved closer. What did you say? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows but refused to say anything. She just looked at him with a smile. Rongxiu gently rubbed her hand with his slightly rough fingers and coaxed her. Or say it again. This husband didn't hear it clearly. Chu Liyue's smile deepened. He didn't hear her clearly and even said, "Husband?" Seeing that she was unwilling, Rong Xiu's eyes deepened. After that, a wisp of a smile that carried deep meaning appeared on his handsome and devilish face. He took her hand and turned to leave. Yan Qing, who was standing at the side, saw this and immediately stepped forward. "Your Highness." Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "I'm drunk, so I'm going back to rest." Chu Liyue's face turned red. He didn't look drunk at all. Yes, Rong Xiu had drunk a lot before, but just now he was talking to her with clear eyes. In the blink of an eye, he said that he was drunk. Who would believe that? Yan Qing wanted to ask more, but Umo pulled him from behind. He looked back and saw Umo frantically winking at him. "What are you doing? Can't you tell?" Yan Qing immediately came back to his senses. A rare trace of embarrassment appeared on his iceberg-like face. He had really forgotten about it. Pfft. A woman's laughter suddenly came from the side. It turns out that Lord Yan Qing also has times when his brain doesn't work. Yan Qing looked back and saw that it was a woman in a colorful dress who spoke. He remembered that this woman was one of the princess's subordinates. Hearing the other party's ridicule, he didn't take it seriously and quickly withdrew his gaze. He returned to his iceberg face. Little Hachi snorted coldly in her heart. She simply walked forward and waved her hand in front of his eyes. "I'm talking to you." When she approached, a fragrant wind blew. Her jade-like arms swayed in front of his eyes, and the colorful strings and bells on her slender wrists jingled. Yan Qing frowned and took half a step back. "Miss Little Hachi, the mountain wind is cold at night. Remember to wear more clothes." Little Hachi was angered to death by his words. Was he mocking her clothes? She had always dressed like this and looked beautiful. What's wrong with that? Ordinary men would have their eyes glued to her when they saw her like this. Not many of them would not be captivated by her. This Yan Qing was different. Not only did he ignore her problem, but he also ignored her as a person. "I'm fine. You don't have to care." When Little Hachi was angry, she was still very beautiful and enchanting. Even if she glared, she still looked somewhat seductive. So this gaze was not lethal to Yan Qing at all. He nodded. "In that case, Yan Qing will take his leave first. Little Hachi, have fun." With that, he really turned and left. Little Hachi was left alone in the wind, confused. "Sister 8, this is the first time a man has pulled a long face at you, right?" Shifang came over and glanced at Yan Qing from afar with eyes full of admiration. As expected of His Highness the Holy Sun's confidant. "You're clear-minded and have strong self-control." Sigh, Sister 8. Bang. Lil 8 elbowed Shifang's face with the back of his hand. Shifang let out a muffled groan, almost dying here. "No one will treat you as a mute if you don't speak." Little Hachi said this and floated away like a colorful cloud. Shifang's eyes were sore and his nose hurt. He was hit until tears welled up in his eyes. "Sister 8, he was just saying that casually." Yujio patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Shifang, you should go back and farm. Eat more and talk less. Oh right, I forgot that you can't eat for a month." "TSK. How pitiful." Sun Yi walked over slowly. His green robe fluttered in the wind. "Go back and cultivate when you're done playing." "Yes." Rong Xiu brought Chu Liyue back to the sacrificial god temple. The mountain wind blew on his face and it took a lot of effort to blow away some of the heat. However, Chu Liyue's heart was still beating rapidly. Fortunately, not long after the fireworks started, Taizu and the others went back. Otherwise, this scene, Rong Xiu, the sacrificial god temple was also decorated luxuriously because of the wedding. Glass palace lanterns hung from the ceiling, and a faint glow shone down, reflecting a brilliant light. "Greetings, Your Highness, Princess." The black-armored soldiers on guard bowed one after another. Chu Liyue swallowed the rest of his words and obediently followed Rong Xiu to the main hall of the sacrificial god temple. This was Rong Xiu's residence. She had stayed here for a period of time before, so she was quite familiar with this place. However, she wasn't familiar with Rong Xiu like this. The room had already been redecorated. The bed was covered with a dragon and phoenix quilt, and the gauze curtain hung down. The red candles burned brightly and light and shadow intertwined. Everything seemed to be shrouded in a layer of indescribable ambiguity. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment. The door was locked. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network.